Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, media friends. How are you today? Wonderful. A very warm welcome to the forum organized by our Hong Kong Foundation. I would like to extend the warmest welcome to every one of you joining us in person and also online through Zoom. Our event today is titled Progress Through Collaboration, our international forum on how connecting the world with Hong Kong's new opportunities and new future. 我们今天活动的主题是联通世界的香港新机遇新未来。My name is Laura Kasensen, your MC for the day. 我是高嘉瑜，你们今天活动的主持人。大家下午好。To embark on the post-pandemic era, international leaders, business leaders, as well as policymakers are coming up with new strategies and new plans to seize opportunities ahead of us, and in view of the challenges that we have never seen in over a century. So coming up next, we shall be hearing from our heavyweight speakers. And while we pay attention, close attention, to China's two sessions that have further elaborated on the 14th five-year plan, as well as the 2035 long-range objectives. So against this backdrop, Hong Kong as a superconnector, how should we capture this opportunity and our role as the superconnector between China as well as the rest of the world is heading for new heights. So the real question is, how do we navigate and how do we seize the opportunities? To answer these very important questions, we have with us the brightest minds in the city together today. And also we have the honor of having some heavyweight speakers, and they include, joining us on video soon later, we will hear from the Honorable John KC Lee, the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. We will also be hearing from Mr. Zheng Yanxiong, Director of the Liaison Office of the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. They will both be delivering video addresses for us today. And joining us in person, we have the honor of having with us the Honorable KK Chan, Chief Secretary for Administration of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region Government. Thank you for joining us today. We also have in the audience Ms. Lu Xin-ling, Deputy Director General of the Liaison Office of the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to give us opening remarks in a minute. 我们再次欢迎稍后会为我们致开幕词的中央人民政府驻香港特别行政区联络办公室副主任卢欣玲女士，欢迎你。And also we have with us in the presence of Yang Yirui, Deputy Commissioner for the Office of the Commissioner of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Welcome. And we also have in the audience His Excellency Ambassador Sahasek Pugagao, former Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand and Secretary General of the ASEAN Peace and Reconciliation Council to this forum. So I think you would agree with us, the audience today, be it in physical or online, we are in for a lot of insights, we're in for a lot of discussion, as well as how do we navigate the future of Hong Kong through collaboration. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Bernard Chan, Executive Vice Chairman of our Hong Kong Foundation and Chairman of M+ Museum, to give us a welcome address. Mr. Chan, please.
Good afternoon. I would like to begin by welcoming the Chief Secretary of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, the Honorable KK Chan, the Deputy Director of the Liaison Office of the Central People's Government in Hong Kong, Ms. Lu Xin-ling, Deputy Commissioner of the Office of the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China in Hong Kong, Mr. Yang Yirui, the Undersecretary for the Financial Services and the Treasury of the Hong Kong Government, Mr. Joseph Chan, the former Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand, the Secretary General of the Asian Peace and Reconciliation Council, His Excellency Ambassador Sihasak. Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. At this point, I would also like to pay a special tribute to the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, the Honorable John Lee, and the Director of the Liaison Office of the Central People's Government in Hong Kong, Mr. Zheng Yanxiong, who cannot join us today in person due to other unavoidable commitments, but who have recorded their messages, which will be shown shortly via a video link. And finally, I would also like to thank the Sino Group for their generosity in sponsoring today's venue, and the Hong Kong ASEAN Foundation for being a supporting partner. Hong Kong has a long history of being a free port, which strives on trade through an open door policy that enables us to become one of the world's largest trading economies, and an international financial and commercial centers serving China, the Asia-Pacific region, and the rest of the world. However, despite this rich history, it seems that over recent years, many people outside of Hong Kong have been having serious doubts about our future and our ability to continue to make valuable contribution within the international community. That was brought about by the international travel restrictions imposed by the pandemic, which resulted in our enforced absence from the international stage. And also, in 2019, we went through a period of social unrest, which, along with the subsequent restoration of law and order, attracted sometimes unfair, unbalanced, but certainly continuous and negative international media coverage. I know from personal experience that this combination left many people across the international community, particularly those not necessarily well-informed, with the view that Hong Kong was somehow losing its relevance, and that any change was probably for the worse. I think everyone here today, and indeed an increasing number of our international friends and partners, will agree that this is simply not the case. However, it has only been in recent months, with the lifting of the travel restriction, that visitors have been able to return for the first time in 3 years and see for themselves the significant progress and development that has been made in many important areas. Despite the pandemic, and in the eyes of many observers, we are re-emerging onto the world stage, stronger and better than before. Our success is a reflection of the one country, two system framework, which provide us with a unique, valuable, and very distinct advantage. Now, however, from my personal experience, this is also a system that many international observers have very difficulty understanding, comprehend, partly because there is no other benchmarks to judge us against. But for those who have first-hand experience here, the system does work and continue to work very well. President Xi's continued commitment to the one country, two system is also an indictment of the importance of the central government places on the unique role that Hong Kong has always played and will continue to play. As the gateway to international community, the system will continue to provide many major opportunities and benefits for the global community. Our status as an international financial center enable us act as an offshore center to service our hinterland of the some 1.4 billion people and meet the needs of the Chinese firms. But on the other hand, we are also serving business interests across the region and the broader international community. In the financial services sector, our IPOs and the bond market continue to do well, and the developments in the virtual assets, the central bank digital currency, and the Web3 continue to create new opportunities. We have been working tirelessly to develop our offshore renminbi business with a view to fostering RMB internationalization. We continue to provide our international partners with a range of products and services which enable them to access the mainland market and other regional markets through a secure, robust, and respected common law system. We are very fortunate this afternoon with us very respected and extremely accomplished guest speakers and panelists who will share their views, these and other matters. Over recent years, we have been consistently developing our connectivity as an international hub in a variety of areas, and it is important to remember that all of our success and progress is a result of a history of long-term collaboration. As the regional logistic hub, we have the advantage of interconnected air, sea, and road transportation, which provides flexibility in moving goods from one corner of the world to another. Security, transparency, efficiency, speed, and connectivity have resulted in more logistics service providers setting up regional distribution centers. As an aviation hub, we are perfectly placed and have all of Asia's key markets within a 4-hour flight radius. Travel a further 1 hour, and we can cover almost half of the world's population. Hong Kong Shipping Registry is the 4th largest in the world in terms of the gross tonnage, with over 150 years of experience in ship registration, inspection, and survey. A Hong Kong registered vessel complies with international standards, including safety and protection of the marine environment. We are making strong progress in a range of areas from life sciences, healthcare, biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, and medical devices. And also in the areas of information and communication technology, intellectual property, trading, philanthropy, insurance, Web3, and the metaverse. We are also increasingly attractive location as a wealth management hub, offering a complete suite of services to support family offices. As a legal hub, we were ranked the 3rd most preferred location for arbitrations globally in 2021. To me, these examples provide clear evidence of the functionality embedded in our one country, two system framework. As chairman of M+ Museum, I met many museum directors from some of the world's most highly regarded institutions and other important influencers who travel here to attend an extensive range of public and private events in March. I was overwhelmed by the feedback I received, which was a massive vote of confidence in Hong Kong and a strong endorsement of our role as the major hub in Asia. I have no doubt these people will convey similar messages to their friends and colleagues back at their homes. Arts and culture create new and valuable channels for engagement, dialogue, and debate, and have the soft power remove barriers and reduce tensions. Likewise, sport has a vitally important role to play in our future, not only from the perspective of physical health, mental health, and the general well-being of those in our community. Sport strengthens our international connectivity and has the capacity to forge a stronger national identity. We have combined science, medicine, and technology into our elite sports program, but much, much more can be done at the community level to integrate sport. Like sports and arts and culture, sport has the ability to positively portray Hong Kong to the international community. A recent example was the last month's very successful Hong Kong Rugby 7. Teams from 16 countries participated in the men's tournament and 12 countries in the women's tournament. We are delighted to have Dr. Trisha Lee here today to share her views on the tangible benefits which sport can bring to Hong Kong and its role as a modern and inclusive society. It would be a remiss of me not to mention the Greater Bay Area, creating a potential market of 86 million people. This is a major part of China's implementation of innovation-driven development and commitment to reform and opening up. This is already providing a significant opportunities for Hong Kong and is helping us to focus and redefine our unique attributes, particularly in dealing with the complex but critical matter of alignment. We should also not lose sight of the role we can play in the supply chain as an R&D center and a valuable test market. Likewise, the Belt and Road Initiative is designed to reinvigorate the seamless flow of capital, goods, and services between Asia and the rest of the world. The global pandemic and geopolitical tensions has somewhat slowed progress, but think 20 years ahead and the opportunities and the efficiency of the increased market integration and the greater connectivity. Once again, there are many opportunities arising from Hong Kong on this horizon. Over the recent years, ASEAN has become Hong Kong's second largest merchandise trade partner, and in 2020, re-export of the mainland origin goods to ASEAN through the Hong Kong exceeded 196 billion Hong Kong dollars. We have a strong relationship with ASEAN, and that needs to be sensitively nurtured and maintained, particularly at such a time of the heightened geopolitical tensions. I have no doubt our esteemed speaker, Ambassador Sihasak, will share his view on the potential challenges and the opportunities with us. Finally, I hope this afternoon's exchange of views and discussions will result in further collaboration and commitment, which will enable Hong Kong to play an increasingly important role in the international debate surrounding these topics and other important challenges which we all face as a member of the global community. In essence, Our future success will reflect progress through collaboration. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chan. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you. I'm always proud to call Hong Kong home, and now I understand the list of reasons of traction are indeed multifolded. Ladies and gentlemen, up next it is my pleasure to invite a video address from the Honorable John KC Lee, the Chief Executive of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to shed light on Hong Kong's new role and new future. Let's hear from the Chief Executive.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to have this welcome opportunity to speak to you at this international forum organized by our Hong Kong Foundation. I would first like to start by congratulating our Hong Kong Foundation for organizing this very special event. The forum today is graced by a panel of high-power speakers and guests. Together, you will explore the means of capitalizing on Hong Kong's unique advantages to foster collaboration under the inspirational theme of connecting the world, Hong Kong's new opportunities and new future. Last month, the first session of the 14th National People's Congress concluded victoriously in Beijing. President Xi Jinping said, and I quote, "The long-term prosperity and stability of Hong Kong and Macau special administrative regions is indispensable to the building of a great China." The President added that we should fully, faithfully, and resolutely implement the policy of one country, two systems. President Xi's words speak to all of us. They tell us that the one country, two systems principle is Hong Kong's inspired means of making an indispensable contribution to the country as well as the international community. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region government is doing just that. Over the next few minutes, allow me to explain some of the policy areas and sectors we are working on to bring a new and brighter tomorrow for all. The first place to begin with is financial services. The National 14th Five-Year Plan looks to Hong Kong to enhance its status as an international financial center. That includes building on our strengths as the world's largest offshore renminbi center, international asset management center, and risk management center. It includes two deepening mutual access between the financial markets of the mainland of China and Hong Kong. Less than a month ago, Hong Kong and Guangdong convened the 23rd plenary of a high-level cooperation joint conference co-chaired by the Governor of Guangdong Province and myself. At the conference, we agreed to expand cooperation in several areas, including promoting mutual access between our financial markets. That mutual access is thriving, I'm pleased to say. The average daily buy and sell values of Stock Connect's northbound and southbound trading have surged to over 97 billion renminbi and nearly 44 billion Hong Kong dollars. That represents increases of 16 times and 46 times from when the scheme was launched in 2014, respectively. Last month, the exchanges in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Hong Kong expanded the scopes of stocks under Stock Connect, adding foreign company stocks under southbound trading. Our renminbi business continues to expand. At the end of 2022, Hong Kong's renminbi deposits reached nearly 1 trillion. Hong Kong processes about 75% of global offshore renminbi payments. Last year, the governments of Shenzhen and Hainan issued offshore renminbi local government bonds in Hong Kong. with each issuance amounting to 5 billion renminbi, these welcome moves would boost the renminbi financial products available here while promoting the internationalization of the renminbi. That's an encouraging start, and rest assured, we're working with the mainland to expand participating institutions and products. We are also working to promote green investment with our motherland. Last year, the Hong Kong Exchange signed an MOU with Guangzhou's China Emissions Exchange. It focuses on carbon finance cooperation, including the possible development of a carbon center in Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area, a cluster city development with a population of over 86 million. Last October, Hong Kong Exchange launched Core Climate, an international carbon marketplace. To date, it is the only carbon market offering both Hong Kong dollars and renminbi settlement for the trading of international voluntary carbon credits. We are also collaborating with the mainland in financial technology, conducting cross-boundary trials to speed up the launch of products and cut development costs. Pilot tests are taking place on the use of e-CNY in cross-boundary payments, and that only underlines our deepening collaboration with the mainland in technology. The 14th National Five-Year Plan expressly supports the development of Hong Kong as an international INT center. We are well on our way there, ladies and gentlemen. The Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Guangzhou Science Technology Cluster has been ranked second in the world for 3 consecutive years by the Global Innovation Index. The Shenzhen Hong Kong Innovation and Technology Cooperation Zone, which brings together the Hong Kong Shenzhen INT Park and the Shenzhen INT Zone, showcases the close collaboration between the governments of Hong Kong and Shenzhen. We are now working towards a cross-boundary policy on INT cooperation. It covers the flow of INT material, capital, data, and people between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Hong Kong and Shenzhen has also formally agreed to boost collaboration among our industry, academic, and research sectors. Earlier this year, Hong Kong and the mainland signed 3 cooperation agreements, including one with Guangdong, created to expedite the development of a smart city cluster. Last month in Beijing, I witnessed the signing of an arrangement between the Hong Kong SAR Government and the Ministry of Science and Technology of China on expediting our development into an international INT center. Beyond our growing economic and INT ties with the mainland, we continue to seek opportunity with the world at large, thanks to the unique principle of one country, two systems that ensures our unparalleled connectivity with the world. There is no better illustration of that than our free trade agreements. To date, we have signed 8 FTAs with 20 economies. They include our FTA with ASEAN, which entered into force just over 2 years ago. Last year, I'm pleased to note our trade in goods with ASEAN reached an all-time high of more than $165 billion. Our cooperation is evident as well in the abundance of ASEAN regional headquarters and offices here in Hong Kong. ASEAN's 10 member states are all founding members of RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. RCEP is now the world's largest free trade agreement, and Hong Kong is determined to be part of it. For good reason. RCEP members last year accounted for 71% of Hong Kong's total merchandise trade and 46% of our trade in services in 2021. No less important, Hong Kong can play a critical role in building regional economic integration through RCEP. We are, after all, the gateway connecting our motherland to the rest of the world. We are seeking early accession to RCEP and count on the continuing support of RCEP members and the distinguished guests of today's forum. Beyond RCEP, updated commitments on trade in services under our FTA with Chile came into effect less than 2 weeks ago, and Hong Kong and Peru began negotiation towards an FTA at the end of January. Our international outlook is equally visible in our rise as a center of international legal and dispute resolution services in the Asia-Pacific. In that, too, we have the support of our country through the 14th Five-Year Plan. The Hong Kong Legal Hub, which opened in 2020, is now home to 26 local, regional, and international law-related organizations. The latest additions to the Legal Hub include the Asian African Legal Consultative Organization Hong Kong Regional Arbitration Center, which opened last May, and the International Organization for Mediation Preparatory Office, set up in February. Hong Kong is the only common law jurisdiction in China. Bestowed with a robust legal system and the rule of law, we are ranked among the world's top 3 most preferred seats for arbitration. It helps, too, that our arbitration ordinance is modeled on the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law Model Law, and that arbitral awards in Hong Kong are enforceable in more than 170 jurisdictions around the world. Just last month, Deputy Secretary for Justice Horace Zheng visited Europe. He also led a 30-person legal delegation to Bangkok to promote Hong Kong's diversified legal and dispute resolution services. The visits for law, finance, business and investment, culture and the creative industries, and much more will continue. My team and I believe in the power of communication and the value of cooperation. That's why I pay my first overseas visit this year to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates in February. Together with a high-level delegation of Hong Kong business and professional leaders, we promoted our trade and cultural ties with the Middle East region. Communication and cooperation is equally important for deepening our integration into national development. That is why later this week, I will be leading a delegation comprising all members of the Hong Kong legislature to visit a number of cities in the Greater Bay Area. President Xi visited Guangdong earlier this month, highlighting the country's commitment in comprehensively deepening reform and expanding high-standard opening up in this pace-setter province of the country's modernization. This year marks the 45th anniversary of our country's policy of reform and opening up. Hong Kong played a part in the opening up of our motherland 45 years ago, and we are pleased and proud to play a role in its continuing progress through one country, two systems, and with the unwavering determination and innovative spirit that has long powered Hong Kong's remarkable success. My thanks again to our Hong Kong Foundation for organizing today's forum. I wish you all a memorable day, alongside new opportunities and the best of business collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, our Chief Executive. 现在我们非常荣幸邀请到中央人民政府驻香港特别行政区联络办公室主任郑燕雄先生为我们以视频的方式致一个开幕词。郑主任将会就中国式的现代化进程当中香港的机遇做出一个深入的演讲。我们有请郑主任。 Now it's my honor to invite Mr. Zheng Yanxiong, Director of the Liaison Office of the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, to offer his views on Hong Kong's opportunity in China's modernization. Let's give him a warm welcome.
尊敬的李家超行政长官，各位嘉宾，各位朋友，大家下午好。很高兴出席联通世界的香港新机遇、新未来主题论坛。首先，我谨代表中央政府驻港联络办向论坛的举办表示热烈的祝贺，向线上线下的参会嘉宾致以诚挚的问候。在去年召开的中共20大上，习近平总书记概括提出并深入地阐述中国式现代化理论，这是20大的一个重大理论创新，是科学社会主义的最新重大成果，也是以中国式现代化全面推进中华民族伟大复兴实践的经验结晶。这段时间以来，中国式现代化不仅成为香港社会的高频热词，也吸引了国际社会的广泛关注。不同于西方已经走过的现代化道路，中国式现代化探索的是一条不用通过扩张和战争，不用搞两极分化，不用先污染后治理，不用掉入中等收入陷阱，不用放弃崇高精神追求，并且可以推动现代化人口倍增的全新现代化道路。这5个不，一个倍增，是一种典型的现代化模式的迭代，必将创造出人类文明新形态。在这样的历史大事件面前，到底香港面临什么样的机遇，应该如何对待？我们可以从习近平主席多次的重要讲话中找到答案。一方面，习主席十分强调中国式现代化的世界机遇，强调我们将以中国式现代化推动人类整体进步，以中国新发展为世界带来新机遇，为动荡的世界提供更多稳定性和确定性，强调中国愿同世界各国分享中国式现代化带来的新机遇。这些重要论述充分表明，中国式现代化不仅造福中国和中国人民，还将为推动世界经济复苏发展和解决全球性治理难题提供强劲动力。另一方面，习主席十分强调中国式现代化的香港机遇，强调推进强国建设离不开香港、澳门长期繁荣稳定，强调中华民族伟大复兴已经进入不可逆转的历史进程，推进一国两制在香港的成功实践是这一历史进程的重要组成部分。香港一定能够为中华民族伟大复兴做出新的更大贡献。最近，习主席在广东考察时再次强调，要使粤港澳大湾区成为新发展格局的战略支点、高质量发展的示范地、中国式现代化的引领地。这些重要论述充分表明，香港在中国式现代化中有可能是全国最具引领作用、最能 占尽先机的区域，也有可能是世界各国和各地共享中国式现代化机遇的超级联系人、超级导入口。这一地位意味着未来的香港优势独特，商机澎湃。香港历来是中国联通世界的重要窗口，是世界各国分享中国发展红利的重要通道。在推进中国式现代化的新征程上，中央政府赋予香港比以往更为重要的角色和使命。香港的独特地位和优势将更加凸显。这意味着，香港在强国建设、民族复兴进程中，将继续担当中国联通世界的重要功能，有能力，也应当成为中国式现代化的排头兵。意味着，香港将全方位受益于中国式现代化，在擦亮老名片、铸就新名片的过程中，进一步增强国际竞争力。意味着，所有选择在香港投资兴业的各国企业和投资者，抓住了一个可以大展宏图的时代风口，迎来了依托香港分享中国式现代化红利的历史性机遇。借此机会，我与大家分享4点看法。第一，香港背靠祖国、联通世界的重大优势，将在中国推进高水平对外开放中进一步彰显和升级。香港是中国唯一集国际金融、航运、贸易中心和国际航空枢纽为一体的国际大都会，也是中国最大的外资来源地、最大的对外投资目的地、内地最大的境外投融资平台。截至2022年底，内地累计利用港资1.57万亿美元，占累计利用外资的55.9%。内地对港投资累计1.6万亿美元，占对外投资总存量的56%。这些数字生动彰显了香港作为内地和世界之间超级联系人的重要性。在中国式现代化进程中，中国开放的大门会越开越大，香港的作为空间会更加广阔。中央全力支持香港抓住国家发展带来的历史机遇，主动对接“十四五”规划、粤港澳大湾区和“一带一路”建设等国家战略，全力支持香港同世界各地展开更广泛、更紧密的交流合作。展望未来，香港不仅将在引进外资、吸引外技上继续扮演重要角色，还能在内地企业走出去中进一步发挥支点作用。不仅将继续巩固与发达经济体之间的经贸往来，还能进一步拓展与新兴经济体的合作关系。不仅将继续保持作为国际资本高地的硬实力，还能进一步强化作为国际人才高地的软实力。有中国式现代化的强力引领，香港这个超级联系人必将迎来历史性的地位再升级、功能再升级、优势再升级。第二，香港法治环境的重大优势 将在服务香港、服务内地、服务全球中进一步彰显和升级。香港拥有深厚的法治基础和优秀的法律人才，法治水平长期享有国际盛誉。香港良好的法治为维护和发展优质营商环境奠定了基石。面对修例风波引发的社会动荡，香港国安法的出台不仅有效维护了国家安全和市民福祉，也有效维护了各国投资者的合法权益。在世界正义工程2022年法治指数排名中，香港居第22位，超越了多个经常指责别人的大国。法治是中国式现代化的题中之意，中央始终坚持依法治港。香港的法治环境和自由开放规范的营商环境将会越来越好。香港良好的法治可以为内地涉外法治建设和内地企业对接国际市场提供有益的借鉴。中央完全支持香港保持普通法制度，保持与世界通行法治规则、市场体系的紧密衔接。这既有利于香港不断的扩大和深化与世界各地的交流与联系，又能够协助内地拓展与世界各地的交往与合作，在普通法系与大陆法系的对接上发挥不可替代的重要作用。香港良好的法治还能为各国投资者解决商业纠纷与争议提供便利。香港国际商事仲裁服务业发达。十四五规划提出支持香港建设亚太区国际法律及争议解决服务中心。前不久，在中央的支持下，国际调解院筹备办公室在香港成立。香港在国际法律服务方面将大有作为。这些都预示着中国式现代化将为各国提供越来越多的国际公共产品。香港的法治优势足以担当重任，必将令世界受益，香港受益。第三，香港国际金融中心的重大优势将在人民币国际化进程中进一步彰显和升级。香港是世界3大金融中心之一。刚过去的3月，巴塞尔银行监管委员会会议、裕泽香江论坛等金融界盛会在香港相继举行。新一期全球金融中心指数报告中，香港营商环境、基础设施、金融业发展水平、声誉和综合等排名均有上升，这些都体现了香港国际金融中心的韧性与实力。在中国式现代化进程中，世界金融将进一步走进中国，中国金融也将进一步走向世界，特别是有序地推进人民币国际化，势必为香港金融业的发展带来重要机遇。展望未来，作为全球最大的离岸人民币中心，凭借成熟经验、先发优势以及同属异国的有利条件，香港完全能够在丰富完善产品体系、提升投融资载体功能、拓展市场深度、强化基础设施建设、促进跨境使用等方面，为人民币国际化发挥更大的作用。 香港国际金融中心的金字招牌将越擦越亮，熠熠生辉。第四，香港文化多元的重大优势将在中西文化交流、文明互鉴中进一步彰显和升级。香港中西文化水乳交融，是香港特色中华文化形态的大熔炉。香港全面复常以来，各类国际文化体育盛事不断，生动展现出多元文化交融交汇的独特魅力。大家熟悉的香港又回来了，热闹起来了。中国式现代化致力推动建设人类命运共同体，而香港的风采和魅力，就是对两种制度有共生、东西文化能合璧、人类命运有共同的最好说明。从更广的视野看，作为大陆文明与海洋文明结合部，中华文化与西方文化交汇地，西方制度方案与中国特色方案共生地，经济枢纽与文化交流集中区，粤港澳大湾区又为香港增强文化创造力、文化辐射力提供了无以伦比的地利之优和人文底蕴。文化包容是最有利于聚集世界人才的，也是最有利于吸引世界投资者、消费者、创造者的眼光的。展望未来，香港理应保持东西文化荟萃的特色，保持马照跑、舞照跳、鼓照吵、外语照讲、洋名照叫，走好国际化道路。同时，理应用好知名文化交流平台和文化 IP 众多优势，向世界讲好中国故事，增强中华文化传播力和影响力。这就必能在促进东西方文化交流、文明互鉴、民心相通中，进一步彰显香港价值、香港担当。抓住重大机遇，需要在正确的时间、正确的地点，顺应历史的大势，把握时代的潮流。我们坚信，和平发展、合作共赢，就是这样的历史大势。中国式现代化就是这样的时代潮流。香港就是这样的正确地点，香港由治及兴的新阶段就是这样的正确时间。各位嘉宾，各位朋友，习近平主席深刻指出，一国两制这样的好制度，没有任何理由改变，必须长期坚持。在香港诸多优势中，最大、最根本的优势是一国两制。确保一国两制行稳致远，就是对中国式现代化的生动诠释和有力助攻。无论时局、世局如何变化，我们坚守一国两制的初心坚定不移，保持香港长期繁荣稳定的信心坚定不移，支持香港保持独特地位和优势的决心坚定不移。我们真诚希望各位朋友亲身感受香港近年来的新变化、新发展、新气息，向世界真实传递 香港声音，展示香港风貌。作为中央驻港机构，中联办将努力为香港更好连通世界，担当超级牵线人、超级勤务员，支持香港在中国式现代化进程中变得越来越好，书写更加灿烂的崭新篇章。最后，祝论坛取得圆满成功，谢谢大家。
非常感谢郑主任热情的演讲。So just the 4 key points that was being mentioned by Mr. Chen. First of all, Hong Kong's soft and hard advantages will be accelerated in the upcoming future. And the second, we should stand firm and be proud of our legal system. And us being a financial center is indeed second to none. And of course, the collaboration of the Western and Eastern culture. And he also mentioned that we can still call ourselves using both our Chinese name or our English name, Yang Ming Xiao Xiao. Well, ladies and gentlemen, up next, it's my pleasure to invite on stage the Honorable KK Chan, Chief Executive for Administration of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region Government, to deliver an opening remark. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Chan, please.
Deputy Director Lu Xingling, Deputy Commissioner Yang Yirui, Bernard, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm glad to join you all today at this International Forum on Progress through Collaboration. This forum could not be timelier with the strong support of our motherland and the concerted efforts of the Hong Kong SAR Government and society at large. Hong Kong has resumed full normality after 3 years of the pandemic. Having resumed normal travel with mainland China and the international world, Hong Kong is back on stage and back in the business of making great progress through collaboration. Just now, the Chief Executive has updated us on certain policy areas, including financial services, business and trade, innovation and technology, legal and dispute resolution services, that our government is putting in efforts leveraging the city's strengths under the one country, two systems principle. At the core of our work is collaboration with the business, academic and research sectors alike to drive Hong Kong's 8 hubs development as underpinned by the National 14th Five-Year Plan. Our collaboration is cross-sectoral. An example with promising prospects is the development of fintech. The growth in the number of fintech companies speaks for itself, from no more than 180 5 years ago to over 800 to date. We're also pleased to note that many of them are founded by talent worldwide, from mainland China, France, Israel, the UK, and other places. And to support sustainable fintech development, we're providing startups with seed funding, investor matching, incubation, and professional support services, launching regulatory sandboxes in collaboration with mainland authorities, and taking bold initiatives, such as issuing earlier this year the first ever tokenized government green bonds. Speaking of green finance, opportunities are tremendous likewise. As the Chief Executive has noted, a recent initiative is the international carbon marketplace named Core Climate, launched by Hong Kong EX last October, to enable effective trading of voluntary carbon credits and instruments across Asia and beyond. From a macro perspective, our government is establishing a Green Technology and Finance Development Committee to produce an action agenda. This agenda will cover, among other things, green certification and green standard setting, converging the mainland and international standards. No less important, our collaboration is multicultural. Hong Kong is developing into a East-Meets-West center for international cultural exchange to tell good Hong Kong stories worldwide. At center stage is the West Kowloon Cultural District, is home to 2 world-class museums, Empress Museum and the Hong Kong Palace Museum, as well as the Sichu Center, combining the East with the West and the Asian with the modern. Other infrastructural projects of the city to be completed in the near future include the East Kowloon Cultural Center to support art tech development and the Kai Tak Sports Park to provide world-class venues for international sports events. Speaking of events, we're welcoming the launch or return of various mega events in Hong Kong. The recent ones include Art Basel Hong Kong, Hong Kong Sevens, Entertainment Expo Hong Kong, and Digital Economy Summit. Leisure and business travelers are coming in to boost our economy. Their visits also help enhance our city's cosmopolitan image. All such hardware and software add to the ecosystem of Hong Kong's art and culture and creative industries. To enrich this ecosystem, our government is working with industry leaders through the newly formed Culture Commission to map out a development blueprint. Looking beyond the city, our collaboration is regional as well as international. With our motherlands, Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area Development, and Belt and Road Initiative, Hong Kong actively plays the role as a super connector between mainland China and the rest of the world. As the Chief Executive has mentioned, our government is stepping up collaboration with Shenzhen to develop the Shenzhen-Hong Kong Innovation and Technology Cooperation Zone, as well as the ASEAN member starts to seek early accession to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. We are determined to achieve these goals by upholding Hong Kong's competitive strengths, including a highly open and internationalized market, the rule of law, robust infrastructure, and the free flow of capital, information, and people, and to take our city's 8 hubs development to new heights. I and the financial secretaries are respectively driving inter-bureau efforts to proactively bring in top-notch talent and strategic enterprises from around the world. Our enhanced package of talent admission schemes, with application procedures streamlined, requirements relaxed, and new initiatives introduced, has been well received. A prime example is our newly launched Top Talent Pass scheme, targeting high-income professionals and graduates from the world's top 100 universities. Over 20,000 applications were received in just a quarter's time, and nearly 12,000 of them approved as of late March. The internationalized nature of the scheme can be seen by the wide-ranging locations of the top universities where the talent in the approved cases graduated. They range from mainland China, Singapore, and South Korea to the US, Australia, UK, and also Canada. At the same time, a dedicated office for attracting strategic enterprises has been set up to draw enterprises of strategic value to our economy by tailoring incentive packages. We also break new grounds by setting up a fund of around $4 billion to co-invest in them and or their projects. Our target sectors include life and health technology, AI, data science, fintech, advanced manufacturing, and new energy technology. The office active discussion with relevant enterprises is underway, with good news to be announced in good time. Ladies and gentlemen, as Hong Kong advances from stability to prosperity, new opportunities surely await. My thanks go to our Hong Kong Foundation for organizing this forum to present some of these opportunities and chart a new future for Hong Kong. I wish you all a rewarding forum and the best of business. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chan. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you so much. 各位来宾，现在我们特别的高兴，因为今天呢，我们当中有中央人民政府驻香港特别行政区联络办公室副主任卢欣宁女士莅临我们今天的论坛，并为我们致辞。我们掌声欢迎卢副主任。It's my pleasure to invite on stage Ms. Lu Xining, Deputy Director for the Liaison Office of the Central People's Government in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. Ms. Lu, please.
陈国基司长、杨一瑞副特派员、陈智思副主席、柯伟宁教授、谢哈萨克大使、陈启忠主席、各位嘉宾、各位朋友，下午好！很荣幸出席联通世界的香港新机遇新未来主题论坛。这个论坛开始前，陈智思副主席跟我讲说，这次论坛筹备的时间不长。但是得到了各界的积极响应，我想今天我们有这么多重量级的嘉宾相聚一堂，也充分说明了我们这次论坛的主题，这个是香港体现了香港联通世界的这个强大的吸引力，当然也展现了我们陈智思副主席领导的团结香港基金作为世界级的这个智库的影响力。相信这次论坛一定会对世界更好地认识由治及兴的香港有很大的帮助。刚才李家超特首和郑燕雄主任分别做了非常精彩的视频演讲，他们都是从中国式现代化的这个宏大背景出发，分享了对香港新优势和新机遇的见解和看法。接下来各位演讲嘉宾还会发表真知灼见。我个人感觉，香港的魅力是丰富和多元的。从不同的视角，你可以发现它不同的潜力和优势。借着这个机会，我也想与各位分享对香港新机遇的看法。第一呢，是当今世界的竞争最终是人才竞争，而香港有无与伦比的综合优势。过去有一段时间，香港一度出现了人才外流现象，很多关心香港的朋友都很担心，但是我认为香港的综合优势很明显。你比如普通法的体系，一国两制制度，还有背靠祖国、联通世界的超级年轻人地位、国际化的优势等等。刚才郑燕雄主任在致辞中给出了很多非常有说服力的数字来说明这些优势。我想，如果各方潜力都能够很好的发挥出来，香港对高端人才的吸引力一定会不断的增强，最终会在人才竞争中胜出。最近李家超特首他这个采取多种措施抢人才，效果也很明显。而我知道呢，这个香港吸引人才的磁场还有很多。这段时间不止一位大学校长非常高兴地告诉我说，他们在吸引国际高端人才方面有重大进展和突破。而且这个势头还在延续。据我所知，这个 Professor 科比刚刚出版了一本著作，叫《思想的帝国》（Empires of Ideas）。他用案例分析的方法比较了德国、美国和中国他们这个大学发展的历程，其中最后一个案例就是香港大学。科比教授将港大作为中国高等教育在世界崛起的一个代表。我觉得也说明了香港高等教育的实力和潜力。我个人觉得，科比教授的这本书很重要，建议各位都去读一读。第二是未来世界的发展取决于不同文明如何共处，香港可以成为文明共荣的试验场。亨廷顿在上个世纪就提出了文明冲突论，但是非常的遗憾，就是全球化的进程让我们生活的地球越来越小。但是呢，却没有让冲突变得越来越少。在各国前途命运紧密相连的今天，不同文明之间到底应该如何相处，才能增进我们整个人类的福祉？不久前，习近平主席提出了全球文明倡议，倡导以文明交流超越文明隔阂，以文明互鉴超越文明冲突，以文明包容超越文明优越。这是为人类挑战提供的一个中国方案。香港接九中风，通五大洋，一个特别重要的特点就是它融中西文化于一炉。 正如刚才郑彦雄主任在致辞中所说的，香港的风采和魅力，就是对两种制度有共生、东西文化能合璧、人类命运有共同的最好的说明。对于一座城市来说，这当然是绝无仅有的优势。无论是从文化交流、文明互鉴，还是从产业合作、民心相通方面，我们都可以有更大的想象力，也有无限的空间。最后一点，科技革命深刻改变人类社会的进程，香港面临的重塑自我的历史性机遇。不久前 ，ChatGPT 横空出世，在世界上掀起了人工智能的浪潮。即便是最稳慎的观察家都认为，全球的经济、社会甚至政治运行的方式都会受到影响。我最近看到一份高盛的报告，预测 ChatGPT 将会影响全球3亿人的工作，而香港受影响最大。这份报告说，有30%的香港人的工作会被取代。原因是香港是以专业服务业为主体的经济，这显然是香港面临的巨大的挑战。但是我们换一个角度看，这又何尝不是一个特别历史性的机遇？因为香港正在紧锣密鼓地构建国际创科中心，如果我们能用好基础研究、高端人才，还有大湾区的广阔腹地，还有香港多年来积累下来的国际化的优势等等多方面的这些因素，完全可以化危为机，倒逼出我们革故鼎新的勇气，也加速经济结构的转型和升级，迎头赶上这一波的科技革命的浪潮。我们香港的历史本身就是一部在狮子山精神照耀下浴火重生的历史，这次也没有理由例外。纵观人类历史上的著名城市，从中国盛唐的长安，到文艺复兴时的威尼斯，到工业革命时期的伦敦，以及后工业时代的纽约，没有一个不是在特定的时间和空间的条件下，把握机遇，做出抉择，奋力打拼出来的。香港作为亚洲4小龙，崛起于20世纪70年代，在世界全球化和中国改革开放的大潮中，逐步发展成举世公认的活力之都、东方明珠。有句名言说得好，机遇属于有准备的人。今天的香港充分享有中国式现代化和国际化带来的发展红利，天时地利人和具备，只要乘势而上，奋发进取，必将大有可为，风光无限。预祝本次论坛圆满成功，谢谢大家。
非常感谢卢副主任的讲话，谢谢。As a wrap-up, she gave us a very good line. Opportunity is for those who are prepared. So indeed, it gives Hong Kong a very good reminder of the opportunities that lies ahead. And right here, I would like to draw your attention, ladies and gentlemen, to the official pamphlet that you receive on the seats. In fact, there are 2 QR codes that you could utilize if you would like to pose any questions to the forum speakers and panel speakers later on. So you could scan either of the QR code to pose questions to the panelists as well as the moderator for the upcoming 2 sessions. 以下呢，有请各位可以看一下你们的长刊，因为里面有2个2维码，分别呢就可以向我们稍后的2个论坛的讲者跟我们的论坛的主持人可以提问。那所以如果您有兴趣，或者是想到有什么问题想提问的话，也都可以使用那2个2维码。And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to invite our distinguished guests to come forward to the stage for a group photo to commemorate this very valuable moment. 以下我们将会邀请我们的主礼嘉宾以及讲者上台合影留念，留住这个珍贵的时刻。May I now invite Ms. Pansy Ho, Board of Governors of Our Hong Kong Foundation. Welcome. Mr. David Lam, Undersecretary for Development, Development Bureau of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region Government. Welcome. Dr. Ellen Seaman, Board of Governors of Our Hong Kong Foundation. Welcome. Mr. Guy Bradley, Chairman of John Swire & Sons Hong Kong Limited. Welcome. Dr. Moses Chang, Board of Governors of Our Hong Kong Foundation. Welcome. Mr. Darryl Ng, Chairman of Hong Kong ASEAN Foundation and Deputy Chairman of Sino Group, welcome. Mr. Vincent Lo, Board of Governors of our Hong Kong Foundation, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Mr. David Liao, Co-Chief Executive of the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation, welcome. Mr. P.C. Lau, Board of Governors of our Hong Kong Foundation, welcome. Mr. Kiyotaka Ando, Executive Director, Chairman, and Chief Executive Officer, Nissin Foods Company Limited, welcome. Dr. Tricia Lee Hay, Chief Executive of Hong Kong Sports Institute Limited, welcome. Dr. Jane Lee, President of our Hong Kong Foundation, welcome. Ms. Angel Ng, Head of Asia of the City Global Wealth, welcome. Mr. Lawrence Lee, Chairman of the Financial Services Development Council, welcome. Mr. Nicholas Agustin, Chief Executive Officer of the Hong Kong Exchanges and Clearing Limited, welcome. 我们有请中央人民政府驻香港特别行政区联络办公室研究部部长雷海秋先生，有请，欢迎您。Dr. Stephen Wong, Head of Executives, Chief Executives Policy Unit, welcome. Mr. Ronnie Chan, Chairman of Hang Lung Properties, welcome. Professor William Kirby, Sprankler Family Professor of Business Administration, T.M. Chang Professor of China Studies, and University Distinguished Service Professor of Harvard University. Welcome, Professor. Ms. Elsie Leung, Executive Committee Member of our Hong Kong Foundation. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. His Excellency Ambassador Sehasak Pugagel, former Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Thailand and Secretary General of the Asian Peace and Reconciliation Council, welcome. 我们有请中华人民共和国外交部驻香港特别行政区特派员公署副特派员杨义瑞先生，有请。And to the three of you, 我们有请中央人民政府驻香港特别行政区联络办公室副主任卢欣宁女士，连同 Mr. Bernard Chen and the Honorable KK Chan, Chief Secretary for Administration of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region Government. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. All right, and now with this very auspicious moment, I would like to invite you all to please look straight ahead with the official photographer that's waving to us. 我们有请台上的贵宾向我们正前方大会的摄影师，我们笑一个好吗？对了 ，All right, keep that smile going. 好，我们满足我们今天的观众朋友好吗？ All right, please also look to the back with the media cameras. 我们可以看一下后方有媒体的朋友们，让媒体的摄影机也把这个时刻给拍下来。And to allow members of the audience to also take a picture if you wish of the guests, distinguished guests and speakers gathered here today. 对了，我们保持笑容 ，keep that smile going. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. A big thank you. 由于陈司长及卢副主任还有杨副特派员另有公务在身，他们会先行离场。我们掌声再次感谢三位的支持。We would like to once again thank the Honorable KK Chan, Ms. Lu, Mr. Yang, who would now depart due to other business engagements. Nonetheless, we would like to thank you for the support amidst their very busy schedule. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen on stage, thank you so much for joining us for the group photo. Please do be seated. 我们有请台上的贵宾们也都可以回座，继续欣赏我们今天论坛精彩的内容。感谢各位，谢谢。 But ladies and gentlemen, once again, I would like to draw attention back to the stage as we're entering an era where individuals and nations are ever more so connected than before. Our shared future is led through common goals as well as collaborative efforts. So will collaboration be a synergy for collective growth, or will it be a zero-sum game for further differentiating winners and losers at last? May we now have on stage Professor William Kirby to share his view. Let's put our hands together for Professor Kirby, please. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. It's a great honor to be here with our Hong Kong Foundation. Even though I'm not from Hong Kong, I feel like I'm part of our Hong Kong being here. It's a great pleasure to be back in Hong Kong. And I'm going to speak from the point of view of an academic and the role of scholarship and academic exchange. This is my first time, really only my second time back in Hong Kong in the last 3 years. I used to go to China and Hong Kong 6 or 8 times a year. And in these last 3 years, as we know, so much has changed. So little seemingly collaboration, for example, between American universities and the universities in Greater China because of COVID. So little cooperation, sadly, between our two countries. So much has been lost. The single motivating purpose of my being here again, just last week in Shanghai and then above all this week in Hong Kong, is to restart my own university's engagement, Harvard's engagement with Greater China, with the great educational partners that we have had and that we will have again in the world of Greater China. I love Hong Kong, and I love its institutions of higher learning. I had the honor of serving for 10 years on the UGC and the University Grants Committee, watching and advising as Hong Kong's universities expanded their reach internationally and also to the Chinese mainland, watching them as they introduced extraordinary new programs in liberal arts education as the universities went to 4-year programs. I had the pleasure of serving on governance review committees for Hong Kong University, on the Center for Chinese Studies Board at Zhongwen Daxue, and I have the great honor of being an honorary doctorate recipient from 2 remarkable institutions, Hong Kong PolyU and Hong Kong Baptist Universities. So I feel, as a scholar, truly home here in Hong Kong. Now, these last 3 years have been insulating and isolating for all of us. This is why we must re-engage. Now, some people will say, on both sides of the Pacific, do we really need to re-engage in collaborative research, writing, and teaching? After all, our countries are seemingly at odds in various ways, and American universities, well, for the moment, they still rank reasonably well in the world, and some in China say, well, China should pursue a 中国特色的教育. But whoever argues this simply does not know the world of universities. The book that I have recently written called The Empires of Ideas, Creating the Modern University from Germany to America to China, shows how great national systems of universities, first in Europe, then in North America, but also here in East Asia, in the world of Greater China, have changed the world. And that is why one thinks, for example, the need to ensure that our own engagement, for example, the engagement of my own university here in Greater China, is so important, because nowhere in the world is there more of the best human capital than there is here in Hong Kong and in the Chinese mainland. Nowhere in the world is there a greater commitment to higher education. I witnessed it here in Hong Kong, and no place in the world is spending more and investing more in the future of higher education than the Chinese mainland. Right before COVID, I had the honor of accompanying Harvard's president, Larry Bacow, to Beijing, where we went with President Xi Jinping. And President Xi made it very clear to us that he wanted more, not less, engagement academically with the United States, that he sought to send more, not fewer, students to the United States. He told us that he had told President Trump, if you limit the number of Chinese students going to the United States, you are doing a great favor for Europe. And he's not wrong in that regard. President Xi believes very strongly in the engagement of our institutions across the Pacific, and he has been and will be, I'm sure, as the leadership here in Hong Kong has been and will be, a strong supporter of our renewed educational exchange. The big question that I ask in my book, since the Germans led the universities, the world of universities in the 19th century, and the Americans had a pretty good 20th century, can China lead? And here I mean Greater China, with Hong Kong in some sense in the vanguard. Can China lead the world of universities? The answer, of course, is yes, but not alone. Because the great universities here in Hong Kong, like those in Beijing or in Nanjing or in Guangzhou, they have grown up in partnership with the great universities of Europe and North America. That's the company they have grown up with. That's the company they want to keep. And that is the company that in time they may lead. When one thinks of why this is important, finally, and let me conclude with this, what actually makes a country great, or a great international city like Hong Kong great? Is it the size of an army? Is it the size of an economy? Or is it the power of ideas and the institutions that create ideas? In the year 1936, on the 300th anniversary of Harvard University, we had a big celebration at our commencement, and Professor Hu Shi from Beida, from Beijing Daxue, came as China's representative to Harvard's 300th anniversary. And he was given an honorary degree. And those of you who have been to the Harvard campus will know that he also dedicated a stele, a shibei, in his calligraphy that sits next to our great Widener Library today. And here is what Hu Shi wrote about the centrality of learning for the making of nations. He wrote this: culture, he wrote it in Chinese, I should tell you, but I'm giving it to you in English. And he wrote it in wonderful classical Chinese, very difficult. He said, culture is the lifeblood of a nation. It is by virtue of its culture that a nation arrives. But truly it is due to learning, 学, that a culture flourishes. Intellectuals with deep knowledge and far-sighted vision understand that in establishing a solid foundation for their nation, the utmost priority must be given to the enhancement of learning. This is something that we believe very strongly at Harvard and in the United States, and very happily, I know, is believed very strongly here in Hong Kong. And that is why I must excuse myself right now to go and give a lecture in 20 minutes at the University of Hong Kong. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Kirby. Thank you. It was an honor having you here today. So Professor Kirby has mentioned how impressed he is with the commitment in higher education in the Greater China, as well as how with collaboration, very in sync with our topic today, we could be the next world of universities. And up next, ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to welcome on stage His Excellency Ambassador Sehasek Pugagel to share his view on the topic of the forum today. His Excellency, please.
Good afternoon, Sawadee Krab. It's a little bit intimidating, to tell the truth, to be speaking in such a high-power forum. and quite a few heavyweight speakers. And I don't consider myself at all in the league of Mr. Ronnie Chan. Yeah. But I'd like to thank the organizers, the Hong Kong Foundation and the Hong Kong ASEAN Foundation for organizing this event. It gives me an opportunity to come back to Hong Kong. I served as Consul General here in Hong Kong long time ago, 2000 to 2002. And, I have many fond memories, of course, but of course, Hong Kong has changed. But in a very real sense, I think Hong Kong has not changed. Hong Kong still remains as vibrant, resilient, and as dynamic as ever, especially now with the lifting of all the restrictions. So I have, as someone who is familiar with Hong Kong, I have great confidence in Hong Kong. I also wanted to take this opportunity to pay a special tribute to my good friend, Kun Bernard Chan. If you try to think of anyone who has contributed so much to the relationship between Thailand and Hong Kong, I think that person is Kun Bernard Chan, because of his family ties, as you all know, but also because of his efforts through the years. Now, this conference, I think, is important. It's timely, because you don't hear the word collaboration so much these days. You don't hear the word connecting. You hear the word conflict and confrontation, and you hear the word decoupling so much, And I think really we're going down a very dangerous path, and somehow, we really have to pursue another path that leads to collaboration and reconnecting and enhancing our connection. What I wanted to do today is to share my thoughts, the perspective of someone from Thailand, from Southeast Asia, on the themes of this conference. On first, Hong Kong connecting the world. Second, the future. What is the future? The third, where are the new opportunities? And fourth, how do we collaborate for growth? I don't have any, magic formula, but I do have some ideas. On connecting the world, I think the role of Hong Kong is obvious, the role of being the gateway to China and the gateway to the world. And the strength of Hong Kong, I think we've all heard, a financial center, a hub for trade, aviation, logistics. But to me, I think what makes Hong Kong stand out is that Hong Kong is not just a city in China. It is a city with an international character, an international outreach, and an international outlook, operating on the basis of international standards. So I think that's what's important. Second, you have all these strengths, definitely, but I think the most important strength that Hong Kong has is the people of Hong Kong, the talents of the people of Hong Kong, the drive of the people of Hong Kong, and the dynamism of the people of Hong Kong, the can-do attitude. I think that's very important. And I am confident in the future of Hong Kong for another reason, because Hong Kong keeps evolving, keeps changing with the times. You are developing, you're reinforcing your core strengths, but you're also developing new strengths. Now you're concentrating on developing innovation, technology. You're into the digital economy, into fintech, green finance, and you're developing homegrown talents while recruiting talent from abroad. And from my perspective of Southeast Asia, another strength of Hong Kong is that you are at the heart of the GBA, the Greater Bay Area. and you are actually the driving force. And if you look at the JBA, it is the highest growth area in China, and taken together, it's one of the largest economies in the region, if not in the world. So I have great confidence in Hong Kong playing the role of the connector. But then what about the future? The future. I think the future is in Asia. And I think Asia is the future. The world has gone through a very profound transformative change. That change is the shift in the global balance of power from the West to the East. And Asia has risen. Asia is rising. They talk about the Asian century. But I think we have to be careful also, because it's not preordained. You know, we have to be able to safeguard our peace in order to maintain our prosperity. But no doubt about it, China will lead the way. China will be the engine of growth in the region. I just came back from India. India will be the fastest growing economy in the region. And then, of course, you have Japan and the Republic of Korea. They will continue to contribute to the region's growth and dynamism. But my concern is the geopolitical challenge that we face. How are we going to face or navigate these challenges together? And I think this is something that we have to think seriously about. But of course, Asia is the future. But where are the new opportunities? I think, and not being biased towards my region, but I think Southeast Asia is where the action is. The 10 countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Kun Bernard told me that he's been working for so many years to get people to pay attention to ASEAN. But I think that attention is being paid now. When I was ambassador to France, even France talked about the rise of Asia. And in that context, they talk about China, of course, talk about India. Then they talk about the rise of ASEAN. So I think ASEAN is where the new opportunities are. Why? Because we are collectively, I don't know whether you know this, the 5th largest economy in the world. And by the year 2030, we will be the 4th largest economy in the world. And ASEAN is an economic community. That means that we are a single market. We're striving towards a single production base. The size of the market is 680 million people. 800 million people with rising middle class, rising standards of living, rising purchasing power, and rising needs for consumption. And our economies are not sitting still. We're in the process of restructuring, reforming. In Thailand, you know, we have to go towards more advanced technology. We have to go towards R&D. Otherwise, we will be where we are, stuck in the middle income trap, where we've been for about almost 20 years now. And so these developments, they represent investment opportunities, whether in industry, in finance, or infrastructure. Do you know how much infrastructure we need annually up to the year 2030? $1.7 trillion US. So this will have to come through investment. We have to mobilize financing, international financing. So I think this is a role that Hong Kong can play, and these are the new opportunities for Hong Kong. And I think the question here is, how do we collaborate to maintain growth? When we talk about collaboration, I think it's about enhanced partnership first. Second is about creating synergies together. Third is about thinking regionally. And the way to go is towards economic integration in our region, broader economic integration. We talk about free trade areas. We need more of them. This will increase the size of the pie for all. And a good example of economic integration, and that was mentioned in the opening remarks, is what we call the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, comprising 15 countries. The 10 countries of ASEAN, plus China, Japan, the ROK, Australia, and New Zealand. India was very much involved in the negotiation, but decided to opt out at the end. And we hope India will be joining soon. But the RCEP represents 30% of the global GDP. So that's very important. And not only RCEP, we also have this high standard trade agreement, the CPTPP, the comprehensive, very long name, Comprehensive Progressive Trans-Pacific Partnership. And this comprises 11 countries on both sides of the Pacific Rim. And China is applying to join. I hope that can be completed soon. Even the UK is joining the bandwagon as well. So I think economic integration will create new opportunities for prosperity, for collaboration in the region. The point that I'd like to make, and this is a point that we think a lot about in Thailand, about growth. Growth, the saying that we have in Thailand is, leave no one behind. So growth for us is not just about growth rates. It shouldn't be. We have to think about the quality of growth. You know, whether it enhances the well-being of our people. We have to think about human security, human development along with growth. And so I think what we should strive towards is sustainable growth, growth that is equitable, growth that doesn't damage the environment, growth that leads to carbon neutrality, growth that achieves the so-called SDG. Because we have to, the goal is 2030. Right now, many countries are far behind from achieving the SDGs. I think the final issue that I'd like to comment on, and I think this is probably the overarching issue for all of us, is that we cannot collaborate for growth. We cannot create new opportunities if we don't have a peaceful and stable global and regional order. And these days, you know, the world is becoming more fragmented, more divided. And the talk is that, you know, the world is being divided between friends and foe. And I don't think this is the way that we should go. And how do we navigate these challenges? So I think that we really have to think of ourselves as a community, trying to find common grounds, common cause, and a sense of community, as I said. And I think if we can do that, what we need to do is, as in the theme of this conference, we need to connect, we need to shape a common future together, we need to find new opportunities for collaboration, and most of all, we have to think in terms of our common peace and prosperity. So thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you so much, His Excellency. Thank you. Indeed, pointing us in the direction of where the economic growth is, and to remind us that division does not promote growth and prosperity, but collaboration does. Thank you so much. Up next, ladies and gentlemen, we're most honored to have with us today Mr. Ronnie Chan, who will be sharing his view on how collaboration can be key for Hong Kong's growth. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Chan.
Thank you, Bernard. Great for the invitation. Frankly, I'm very, very surprised that I was invited because I'm an outsider. I'm never an insider by choice. I never like to be on the inside, and I've never been. And I can see a lot of insiders here. I said, why not Vincent Lo? Why not Moses Chang? Why not Alan Zeman? Why not Elsie Leung? Why me? I am truly baffled. Just to show you how much of an outsider, I have never met Madame Lu Xinling. Well, I've met her, but nothing more than shake her hand and said, my name is Ronnie Chan, because she probably doesn't know who I am. And the only time I have anything to say to her is right now, but she left already. I wanted to tell her that I think she looked a lot nicer, smarter, and prettier than the photograph that was shown of her there. And if I had said that to her, that would have been the first sentence I have ever spoken to her. So I have no idea why I'm invited here, Bernard. I think your staff went cuckoo. But whatever it is, when called upon, I have no choice. I serve on the board of our Hong Kong Foundation. And so let me just present a few thoughts as a Hong Konger. I'm the first at least, non-Hong Kong government official speaking here today. And so there will be more. Lawrence, you'll be next. But so I represent in some way the average man on the street in Hong Kong. Over the last 20-some years, I've been repeatedly thinking one problem, one issue, one question, and that is, what is one country, two system? Does it work? Can it work? And how does it work? And that question has troubled me for many years, especially since 2014, when we had the streets, the yellow umbrella, and then later 2019 with the black coats, the riots. And I came to the conclusion that every one of us back in 1997 had our own imagination of what one country, two system may be. But since mankind has hardly ever seen it, nobody really knows what it ought to be like and what it can be like. And so it is a new thing to all of us according to each of our different imaginations. Moreover, one country, two system, just like any other human system of government, must evolve over time. They cannot be static. And so whatever your imagination was 27 years ago in 1997, 26 years ago, maybe times have changed. That necessitates your review of your construct, your mental construct of what the one country, two system is. So if we were to see one country system evolving, we should not be surprised. It is a natural course of happenings, not to mention that whatever you imagine or I imagine it to be is nothing more than what you imagine and what I imagine. And so I'm glad that, in a sense, Hong Kong has been evolving in this regard. Now, obviously, there are a lot of happenings in the last 26 years that necessitated a lot of changes. And so let me first examine what have changed. If we don't know what have changed, we don't know what needs to be changed today in order to tailor to a changing world that is around us. I say there are three areas of changes. First, Hong Kong has changed. Number two, our relationship with the motherland, mainland China, has changed. And number three, and perhaps the most significantly, the world around us have changed. Hong Kong, how Hong Kong has changed? Well, we never had NSL, the National Security Law. Do you support the NSL? I have no choice but to support the NSL. I don't want the riot that was there in 2019 that was so violent. I grew up here in this town. I've never been feared on the streets of Hong Kong like in 2019, as I drove home one day, my driver refused to let me drive home. One day I snuck out and drove home, and I regretted it. So national security law is a necessity, that's all. And by the way, the Hong Kong police were so restrained. I'm so proud of them. But whatever it is, what is on the street is what is on the street. And with that, there's no choice but to have NSL. And so be it. But once you have it, Hong Kong has changed. And changed forever. You cannot turn the clock back. And the change, I only regret that we had gotten to ourselves to a position we had no choice but after NSL. That is a nuclear option. You can only use it once. And you can never use it and say that you have never used it. And so I regret that we have gotten to a point where we had to use it, but once we got to the point, we have no choice but to use it, and so be it. I'm a business guy. I'm pragmatic. I need to do business. I need to do what it takes to survive as a business enterprise. So Hong Kong has changed, and not necessarily to the worse. I don't like all the political infighting of the last 26 years. I'm very happy today that we can now finally get back to business. When was it? 2002, during the Bill Clinton and George H.W. Bush US presidential election, Clinton said something very famous. He said, "Is the economy stupid?" And people try to analyze Hong Kong and give it all kinds of explanation. I said, "It's politics, stupid." It's as simple as that. And the NSL will enable us to return to the economy. For that, I'm grateful. The second thing is that Hong Kong's relationship with the mainland of necessity has also changed. Remember the then President Jiang Zemin says? He said, "Let Hong Kong be Hong Kong, let mainland be mainland. 河水不犯井水. Let's just not invade on each other's territory." Hong Kong tried. Some people in Hong Kong, unfortunately, try that, and it cannot end well. And that's dragged the rest of us into the pit. So the relationship of Hong Kong and the mainland will have to change as well. But I, for one, do not believe for a moment that it is cast in stone what that relationship ought to be moving forward. I don't believe that Beijing wanted it to be set in stone either. As long as we respect the bottom lines, 底线, then the rest is okay. And so it is up to we, Hong Kong people, up to us, to define partly what that relationship is and work with Beijing to find out what that relationship ought to be. But that which worries me the most is the third area that have changed, and that is the world around us have changed. In particular, US-China relationship have changed. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the following. 1841, when the Brits took over Hong Kong. Hong Kong has, ever since that time until 2020, part of the international community. Initially, because Britain was a major player in the world, so Hong Kong, being a colony of Britain, was protected under that. And we were part of the world community of players. All the way, even after 1997, the rest of the world basically accepted one country, two system, and they should, because it is true, it is real, and we were okay. Until 2020, roughly, after the riots of 2019 and the NSL of 2020, the rest of the world, led by the United States, decided to yank Hong Kong out of the international community and lump it together with the rest of mainland China. Interestingly, the rest of mainland China is striving hard to be part of the international arena in almost every area of human endeavor. Yet if the number one country in the world, the United States, wants you out, it is not a fun thing to be. And so I see Hong Kong being yanked away from the international community, beginning with academic exchange, then with specific products, and then with people exchange, and then finally, perhaps, well, I should take away the word perhaps, even with capital exchange. And so in those 4 areas, Hong Kong will come under increasing pressure from the international arena. It will do well for Hong Kong to recognize the time and preserve ourselves, protect ourselves accordingly. We can only rely on 2 things. Number one, when some people hurt Hong Kong, it may end up hurting themselves even more. But no one can prevent a nation from hurting others by hurting themselves even more. And it is known to have done that over and over again. When the Russian US dollar accounts are frozen, who get hurt the most? I came to the conclusion the one who gets hurt the most, and many people increasingly agree with me, is the US dollar. And when US dollar is hurt, who get hurt the most? So these are hard geopolitical facts that Hong Kong is facing, and we will do well to recognize them and prepare ourselves accordingly. And these are not things that Hong Kong alone can handle. These are international affairs. These are areas that Hong Kong has to work closely with Beijing in order to have a hope to protect ourselves. So my last point is the following. Where is Hong Kong's economic future? I happen to believe that Hong Kong's economic future is fine. I don't know if we will thrive in the old days of growing at 7-8% per annum. I don't know about that. But if we grow at 3% per annum for the next 10, 20 years, it's not the end of the world. So I don't think that Hong Kong's economy is doomed. No, for not a moment. I just wrote in my letter to shareholders that my company has no intention to leave Hong Kong as a headquarters because we think this is still the best place for us to do business. And we have all intention to stay here, although our income will increasingly come from the mainland of China. Why not? If that's where the money is, that's where the money is. But we have no intention to leave Hong Kong. So where are the opportunities for Hong Kong? Number one, like it or not, and I've been saying this for the last 25 years, just like Hong Kong people seem to be deaf. But I think that now I may have a little bit more welcoming ears. And that is, Hong Kong's economic future must be the mainland of China. It doesn't mean that we will replace our relationship with the rest of the world. I still travel 70% of the time outside of the mainland of China. I'm still in America every month. I'm still in Europe every other month or more. In the Middle East, Southeast Asia, I'm there all the time. Because that's where the opportunities are, and that's what will serve Hong Kong well. However, if Hong Kong people does not know to connect more tightly economically with the mainland of China, then sorry, Hong Kong does not deserve to thrive. Hong Kong is privileged to be on the footstep of the mainland of China. And as Lee Kuan Yew, someone who I respect tremendously said, there's one thing he admires Hong Kong, and that is our geography. And if we don't appreciate ourselves and take advantage of it, who is there to blame but ourselves? So like it or not, Hong Kong's future, economic future, is inextricably tied to that of mainland China while keeping relationship with the rest of the world. In the past, there were ideological barriers on the parts of many that want to keep Hong Kong economically away from the mainland of China. There were such dumb people in Hong Kong in the last 26 years, including surrounding Mr. Zheng when he was the chief executive of Hong Kong. Thank God those people are now out of the window. It's time, ladies and gentlemen, that we should get back to the basics, where the money is. Somebody asked a bank robber. We're not a bank robber in Hong Kong. We're really good people here. Some people asked a bank robber in America. He said, why do you rob a bank? He said, well, that's where the money is. And he said, why do you want to go into mainland China? I said, that's where the money is. Just as long as you make it legally and properly, why not? And so I think that Hong Kong, our future, no doubt, our economic future is tied to that of the mainland China while preserving our connectivity with the rest of the world. However, the connectivity with the rest of the world may also change. For example, today, America doesn't welcome Hong Kong because they don't welcome mainland China. It's nothing, they're not against us per se, but like it or not, your peripheral damage is absolutely true. You disagree, I'll be happy to buy you lunch. I'm a business guy. Anyway, so markets have to change. Connections have to change. Even industries have to change. We have to develop new areas of expertise. We have to develop new businesses, new connections, new relationships around the world in order to keep ourselves economically vibrant. The second area, of course, is technology. Like it or not, the last 20, 30 years since Hong Kong's return to the mainland of China was the time that mainland Chinese technology took off. And Hong Kong has been left behind to a good extent. Several reasons. Some people say land is too expensive. That's true, but land price is coming down. There's no model, successful model. That's true, but they are coming. I know some of them. Our universities are very good. And finally, I think the ability for us to bring scientific research into commercialization is good. Finally, people say Hong Kong's market is small. I say, true. But why should Hong Kong be your market? Why should the world not be your market? Why should Southeast Asia not be your market? Why should mainland China not be your market? So my last advice to Hong Kong people is, don't think Hong Kong. That's a sure way to not make a lot of money. Think China, including Hong Kong, of course. Think the region, and think the world. Broaden yourself. So my last thinky little suggestion. In the 1950s and 60s when I grew up, in Hong Kong, apart from English, what language was the most revered? If you speak that language, people bow to you. What is that? 1950s and 60s. Shanghai-hua, Shanghainese. 20 years later, in the 1970s, they were replaced by the Cantonese because the children all speak Cantonese, right? But in the 1990s, I began to hear Putonghua, first in Taiwan and in Shaogei-wan or somewhere. And then 10 years later, it moved to North Point, it moved to Causeway Bay, and then it moved to Wan Chai. In the last 10, 15 years, it's all over the place. In fact, these guys are better educated than the average Hong Kong. They're more wealthy than the average Hong Kong. So, hey, why are you against them? Well, we're not against them. We just have a problem. Our Putonghua is not that good. So I suggest that Hong Kong people better get out of your butt and start speaking Mandarin or Putonghua for business purposes. At home, sure, Cantonese is great. If I curse you, I haven't begun with the 18th generation, I haven't started yet. That's a Cantonese. But leave it to the home for business, for academia, for schooling. I suggest that we speak Putonghua, blend with those new Hong Kongers. I don't know the number of it, it's a lot of it. as a businessman, how to maximize the return on asset is important. And we have so many Putonghua people in the last 20 years who have come to Hong Kong that are great asset to Hong Kong. Let's make sure that our return on asset is very high by taking advantage of them, blending with them, welcoming them into our society, making them part of us. Hong Kong will do well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chan. I think you would agree that deserves another round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Ronnie Chan. Hi, Hosan. Hey, my mom's Shanghainese. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard from three distinguished speakers. First off, beginning from the academia, from an academic perspective, how the proliferation of focus and commitment in academics in this region would benefit Hong Kong. And then from His Excellency on the concept of furthering collaboration, as well as the importance of having Hong Kong connecting with other regions. And of course, from Mr. Ronnie Chan just now, who highlighted the different changes that we observe here in Hong Kong, and for us to be well aware of the fact that Hong Kong is based, but we need to look beyond the market of Hong Kong for benefiting our economic investments. So I think that was a great start for the forum discussions. And up next, we have our next panel discussion titled Integrity and Innovation, How Hong Kong's New Strengths as an International Financial Center Will Pan Out. Well, I think you would agree with me that innovation has been at the forefront of different types of industries. And in particular, with the finance industry, it has become a buzzword. Different financial products, the latest fintech, etc. However, with the technology advancement, there is also associated risks, so occupied also with a lot of international spotlight. So as an international financial hub, how does Hong Kong ride the undercurrent of both the technological advancement as well as the potential risks that we're about to face, and ensure that our regulatory system is solid and strong to foster creative industries operating in this region? Up next, we will be inviting on stage soon enough 6 eminent speakers to discuss the topic. So please join me in welcoming our speakers on stage, and they include Mr. Joseph Chan, Under Secretary for Financial Services of the Treasury. Welcome, thank you for joining us. Mr. Lawrence Lee. Welcome, Mr. Lee. Mr. Nicholas Augustine. Thank you for joining us. Mr. David Lau. Welcome, thank you for joining us. And Ms. Angel Ng, our speakers for the session. And our moderator for the panel, Mr. Daryl Ng. Let's welcome Daryl on stage. All right, ladies and gentlemen on stage, please be seated. And Mr. Ng, the stage is all yours.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So, let me see. Everyone is here. Joseph, Lawrence, Good Joe, David, Angel. What a great pleasure to have you all join us here today. I'm so excited because all of you are my good friends, and also you are all great leaders working to create a better Hong Kong. And this is the perfect time for us to be discussing how we can enhance and leverage our dear city's strengths. As China reopens after the pandemic, as globalization shifts its gear in face of geopolitical uncertainty, Hong Kong must keep innovating and improving to show the world our attractions and to support our motherland in all ways. From renminbi internationalization to fintech, from blockchain finance to family wealth management, I look forward to hearing from you all what you have to say on these very good topics. Joseph, the global financial landscape has changed significantly since the start of the pandemic. How would Hong Kong government characterize our new role in this landscape, and what new doors have opened for the city as IFC?
Thank you, Dale. And well, first of all, I'd like to thank Bernie and the foundation for having me here today. Well, before we talk about the future, we mentioned about pandemic and the changes over the last few years. I want to first do a quick recap of where we stand as an international financial center. Because although the pandemic did affect many ways in our lives and the economy in terms of disrupting the supply chain and also how being business was conducted, I think from the financial market perspective, our figures remain strong, and I'll share that with you. If we look at the equity market last year and funds raised through IPO, we ranked number 4 in the world. Actually, number 1 and 2 was Shanghai and Shenzhen. Number 3 was NASDAQ. So if you're talking about capital free flow market, we actually ranked number 1 in Asia or number 2 in the world. In bond market, we ranked number 1 as a center for arranging Asian international bonds 7 consecutive years, topping the league table. Insurance, we continue to rank number 2 in the world and number 1 in Asia in terms of insurance density and insurance penetration rate. If we look at the banking system, despite the fact that in the last year or two, globally, there were pressure on liquidity, so on and so forth, the total amount of bank deposit in Hong Kong grew by 4.6% in 2021 and grew by another 1.7% in 2022. When it comes into asset and wealth management business, the latest report was released last year. At the end of 2021, our AUM reached close to $4.6 trillion across 19, 20, and 21 through 2 years of pandemic. We actually grew by 48% of AUM across that 3-year period. So you reckon that despite the challenge from pandemic, it might have changed a certain way how we conduct business, but we continue to be in a position of strength and position of scales. And indeed, our business on the market kept growing. So one might ask, so why is that? I think one reason behind this is pandemic or may change our concern, short-term concerns on supply chain, on travel restriction. But what is our core competitiveness? What makes Hong Kong special is down to, I think, rather than what Ronnie mentioned, which is one country, two system, right? Under one country, we provide preferential access to the mainland market. So when international financial institutions or investors looking for access to opportunities in mainland China, the second largest economy and keep growing strongly, Hong Kong is the location. And under two systems, right, we offer free flow of capital, free convertibility of Hong Kong dollars, common law system, and also our regulatory regime compatible with most of the major markets, and of course, our simple and low tax regime as well. So I think all these long-term competitiveness of Hong Kong remain the same, and that's explain why remain strong and keep growing regardless of the short-term sentiment per se. Moving forward, I would say, as I mentioned multiple times, I think through pandemic, technology is being adopted in a massive way. Fintech development, of course, advanced very quickly. Over the last few years now in Hong Kong, we have granted license to 4 virtual insurers, 8 virtual banks. Our own infrastructure, the faster payment system, over the last few years, we have now get around, we're talking about 12 million registrations under that as well. And at the end of October last year, we see that virtual assets is a business opportunity. It poses certain challenges because of the technology, blockchain and so, but I think what we should do is we should embrace the challenges and leverage on that to capture business opportunities. So we will adopt what we call a same activity, same risk, same rule principle to embrace these challenges and develop the business in virtual assets. So we actually promulgated our policy statement on development of virtual assets in Hong Kong at the end of October last year. And actually since December last year, we have 3 virtual asset futures ETFs listed in Hong Kong already. And in June this year, the new licensing regime for virtual asset service providers will commence operation. I reckon I'm using up my time already, although I only halfway through what I want to say. The last 30 seconds, I think the other change that we observed over the last few years is that ESG, green finance, have come in a big way. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are already the leader in asset management, in bond issuance, in equities, so on and so forth. But ESG will play a big role. So if we do not do ESG right, not only we will not win new businesses, but we might lose our existing market shares. So we embrace it with various initiatives, such as the government green bond program, such as a green and sustainable finance grant scheme. I'm happy to share with you that, let's say, last year in 2022, the total amount of green and sustainable debts issued in Hong Kong reached $80.5 billion. Is amount which is 5 times of 2020, so we're growing strongly. If we look at the ESG funds registered in Hong Kong, authorized by SFC at the end of last year, we're talking about 177 ESG funds authorized here. It's an increase of 86% in terms of number of funds. So you'll see that I think ESG, fintech are the way to go, and the government continue to put up different measures to support this growth. Maybe I should stop here to save some time for the rest.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you.
That's really fantastic. A lot of good news for Hong Kong, and also the Hong Kong new government administration since last July 1st. You guys have been working around the clock to help Hong Kong, so thank you. Lawrence, Joseph outlined many forward-looking visions that we are all embracing. A core prerequisite for this is Hong Kong's strong common law system, which you know very well, which has been a key source of confidence and trust for international investors. What are the particular highlights for investors that you would like us to consider as we emerge from the pandemic? And Hong Kong as an IFC, how can Hong Kong leverage your unique strengths of the common law to enhance our connection between the mainland, GBA, and the global market? Thank you.
Oh, this is a bit of a long question. You know what? I caught one word, prerequisite. And Daryl, thanks for using that word. Law is not an afterthought. It doesn't become relevant only when you have disputes. It is, thank you for using the word prerequisite. On a personal note, could I begin on a personal note by saying I was sitting here listening to the beginning speakers, and I thought to myself, I texted Bernie, who's left, oh, culture and law are the 2 new topics now. Not really, because as you say, that is the prerequisite to things, but finally I realized why the government appointed a barrister to chair the Financial Services Development Council. So I actually do have something to say, I suppose. And it is this. The question is about how common law helps, how Hong Kong's legal system helps. To answer the question, let's pause. When we think about finance and law, we tend to think about securities law, we think about regulation. I know Gu Chou thinks about that a lot, sometimes in positive ways, sometimes not. Interesting relationship between exchange and regulator, where the law comes in to help too. But actually, if you are talking about Hong Kong as an international financial center, or any place as a place to do business, law is relevant to you not just because, and frankly, mostly not because of regulation. It's because it affects you. It affects the banker. And I was sitting there thinking, oh, how am I going to illustrate this? And it occurred to me, I actually do quite a bit of employment cases for financial professionals. I sit on the International Court of Qatar in Doha, and that court has jurisdiction over essentially 4 things: regulatory things, contractual things where they opt for the international court, 3, prudential things, so if it has to do with prudential capital, and 4, which account for a large part of the regulatory tribunals and international courts' work, is employment. And it's because if you want international financial professionals to come work in Hong Kong, they want to operate not just for their professional business, but at a personal level in an environment that they're comfortable with. Their employment is governed by rules they are familiar with. Their property is governed by rules they're familiar with. So people, if you choose to buy a house, if you choose to rent, hopefully a palatial flat, that costs a little bit of money, you want to make sure that all those rights and obligations are familiar to you. And so common law actually comes in many, many ways. I also went to the source of this new hype about common law in Hong Kong, and that comes from the presidency's speech on July 1st last year. I finally got around to reading the full text, I must confess. I mostly relied on press release, but today I went to the full text, and I realized it actually mentions common law twice. First, it mentioned common law as part of Hong Kong's success in one country, two system, and part of the achievements that we have made in the last 25 years, that common law has continued to thrive. So that's looking back. And it mentions common law again, looking forward, as how it will contribute, how it is an essential part of Hong Kong's unique advantage. And I was sitting there thinking, well, it's rare for common law to be mentioned by a national leader. Most national leaders of whatever country tends to pay lip service, and they say rule of law, independence of judiciary, so on and so forth. And so it is an example of a national leader talking about the content of the law, which is rare in itself. And two, if one actually pause and think, you know what, common law is a essentially British in roots thing, all right? It has grown to be a much more international enterprise, but it is British in roots, English in roots, actually, not even British in roots. And for a Chinese national leader to recognize the value of this, it's truly embracing that, you know what, whatever thing comes out of the English tradition, the American tradition, the Chinese tradition, East or West, if it is good for embracing cooperation, it is good for international development, it is something that China will not hesitate to embrace. And I think that has a higher message, that not only is it practically valuable to Hong Kong as an international financial center, but that also, it shows how at a macro level, this is the kind of thinking that is underpinning the success of anything East-West related, which is you can't ask whether this is East or West as your most important question. You have to ask whether this actually helps the relationship as your question. And to that, I say common law is very, very much helpful to Hong Kong as an international financial center. It is helpful to Hong Kong. It is helpful to the international players in Hong Kong.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good show. As our main engine of Hong Kong's status as IFC, the Hong Kong EX that you lead aims to distinguish itself as a leading listing global platform. So HKEX has launched numerous initiatives, and most recently, a new set of listing rules. How effective do you think these new rules that you introduce will be attracting more Chinese, more overseas, more international companies to list in Hong Kong?
Well, thank you, Darrell. And let me start by perhaps making a linkage in order to answer that question between the title of this event and what we do and what we're trying to do. I mean, the title of progressing through collaboration and connecting the world. These are very, very important. One of the first things that I actually did when I joined the exchange is make sure that, you know, look at the purpose. What's our purpose? What we're trying to do? And we ended up with a purpose which is to connect, promote, and progress our markets and the communities they support for the benefit of all. So it's very important as an infrastructure what we're trying to do, and we're going to achieve this through three strategic principles, three things that we're focusing on. First one, connecting China and the world. And I'm not going to spend time with you because Ronnie already said it, be smart, okay? So connecting China and the world, it makes sense. We have a very unique advantage of being the most Chinese city outside of the mainland and the most international city of China. This is very, very unique. Second one, connecting capital with opportunities. We need to find those linkages of how the financial world can actually help the development of our societies. This is very, very important. Make a link between finance and the real economy. And we spend a lot of time thinking about that. And I'll come back to the listing, which is precisely where this ties, you know, very well. And the third one that we have is connecting today with tomorrow, and that has a lot of implications, not only from the fact that most of the world is moving towards East. In just like 10 years, around 50% of the world GDP will come from Asia. So it makes sense to think about the future and how do we connect today with tomorrow, but also all the technological changes that are happening in our world and the importance of technology and how do we take advantage of that and how do we leverage all these changes in the industry. Now, with respect to listing, in 2018, we made some fundamental changes to our listing rules. And 3 things that were changed in particular. One, we made it easier for new economy companies to list. Many new economy companies had weighted voting rights, and it was very, very difficult to access the Hong Kong market because those economies were reliant on some innovators, some founders that were critical to the success of the companies, and they preferred to have, weighted voting rights. So that change was implemented together with also the possibility of attracting some companies that decided to list in the US, and since they didn't have that possibility, and so providing an easy way for companies to come back to Hong Kong. That was extremely successful. Since then, about $1 trillion Hong Kong dollars was raised through 265 new economy companies that decided to come back to Hong Kong or to list in Hong Kong or to choose Hong Kong. Another one was the decision to change a regime to allow Hong Kong to develop as a biotech fundraising hub. Once again, that was extremely successful. 112 companies since 2018 have actually chosen to raise money in Hong Kong. Many of these companies don't even have revenues. These are pre-revenue companies, and they raised over 250 billion Hong Kong dollars. So imagine all that capital being put to work to actually generate, new discoveries, new medicines that are very important for the healthcare industry. And then we have to continue thinking. And we're now focusing on some important areas. And I'll mention just 2 of them, given that they are very much in the news lately. One of them is the new chapter that we have developed. It's called Chapter 18C, to take into account the companies of tomorrow. These are companies in artificial intelligence, companies that will try to develop new technologies to capture carbon, for example. Companies in advanced computing, food technology. Some of those companies don't have revenues, and they wouldn't make it to our main board listing requirements. But with these new rules, essentially, if you have the right investment in R&D, if you have the right capital partners, then you would qualify. So that new chapter has generated a lot of attention. The other thing that is also important in the idea of connecting with the world, and this is incredibly important. Typically, many people think of, Hong Kong is just like a way of capturing international money to actually put it to work for Chinese companies. Actually, what has been done in the last year is something quite the opposite. It's allowing international companies to come and list in Hong Kong and take advantage for the first time of that pool of capital from the mainland that will now be able to participate in investment opportunities internationally. Now, there are some requirements that need to be followed, but the reality is the opportunity for southbound investors from the mainland through Stock Connect to participate in companies that are listed in Hong Kong that qualify for Stock Connect. It's just like so important, because that narrative of Hong Kong is just to finance Chinese companies and use international capital. It's not really like that. The objective is to make this a two-way flow, to make it a capital center where capital and opportunities can meet. And it doesn't matter if it's like international capital or domestic Chinese capital, and it doesn't matter if it's opportunities from anywhere in the world. If we can do that, we're going to create a critical mass in certain industries, particularly around technology, that is going to be incredibly exciting for the future.
Good job. I hope that you will lead Hong Kong Stock Exchange to be the global IPO champion this year, okay? So, David, as Gucho just said, Hong Kong's value has much to do with us being core part of China. What, in your opinion, is the greatest value of one country, two systems? And as Hong Kong and China emerges from the pandemic and seeks to re-engage with the world, what advice would you give all of us friends here who are seeking to tell the story of one country, two systems on the international stage? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, firstly, Daryl, for shortening the session and collaborating so I can catch a flight to Beijing straight after this. That's very kind and thoughtful. And secondly, thank you for this question, because I'm so glad that all the previous speakers has answered the one country, two system so well already. And I've been trying to think how not to repeat all the words of wisdoms that's been shared by everybody. And I just invariably, in being in Hong Kong, thought about food, and in particular seafood. And you know, Hong Kong is such a unique place. And I really remember we're family friends, and all our previous generations, they're so particular about their seafood, particularly the fish in Hong Kong. They will never be caught dead having the fish from a tank, or even from the clear waters of Philippines or Taiwan or elsewhere. They will always pull out the rod and the string for those who are discerning to catch a fish from the Hong Kong waters. Why? Because it's the unique ecosystem of the fresh water coming, well, reasonably fresh water coming out from Pearl River Delta, as well as the sea water is where it's mixed, it's where the food comes in, and it's got this specific texture. And this is exactly the uniqueness of Hong Kong people that people talk about. It really is, it really is special. And I think this is where one country, two system is completely unique. It isn't present in anywhere else. There are people that misconstrued and look at with some lack of confidence. But I think this is what exactly makes it thrive. And I think, Lawrence, primarily it is this two system. It is a common law system that frames the financial framework, that frames opportunities for companies in China to come to Hong Kong. It frames international investors to come to Hong Kong. It helps all the building blocks for the stock exchange and everything. And I think that's absolutely necessarily to be kept. Now, I think when we look at what we need to speak about the two system and the threat of it is clearly the threat of not two systems. and so that's exactly what we need to protect ourselves with. I think that sometimes when we look at, and so much work and efforts has been done just in the financial industries on connects in the stock exchange between banks of Angel and ourselves, it's very easy to be tempted to the path of least resistance, but it's critically important to hold the legal integrity of Hong Kong and to really hold this separate system. I think the key word to take away is we're trying to drive unity and not uniformity. It's very easy for Hong Kong to have a big pipe of renminbi, a big pipe of capital, and become just another city of Hong Kong. But that's where we have to sort of valiantly defend and continue to speak the unique system here, continue to court the international investors, international companies that comes here. Gucho, ourselves, everybody has been to the Middle East this year multiple times, bringing the companies here. This is the new phase. We already had, speaking a little bit about capital, we are already, as Gucho mentioned, has phenomenal build on the connects to bring investors to Hong Kong, into the Hong Kong market, both fixed income and equity, as well as going in through the Q fee. This is almost a 20-year anniversary now. There are much more to do in terms of now bringing companies apart from Chinese companies. Here we have a rather heavy loaded Chinese skew for good reasons. I mean, I think around 80% of market cap and turnovers are really Chinese related companies in H shares, red chips, and Chinese private companies. There's a lot more room to bring Hong Kong as a truly one of the top 3 financial centers to let them to raise capital, etc. here. This is where renminbi internationalization is phenomenally important. Ronnie spoke about whether there is a risk of the geopolitical tension, there is a risk of the dollar landscape that Hong Kong serves so well as a peg currency. Renminbi internationalization will be a critical piece of the equation. And I think we ran through, again, pretty much about 20 years of that journey. It's quite tricky to trade sometimes when you run for a decade of a currency movement that's largely appreciating and have a high interest rate environment. It would drive one-sided behavior on that. 2016 changed that as renminbi first depreciated after the movement in 2005. We now have a new paradigm as well. We now have renminbi now as the first time primarily a funding currency for global assets, because the interest rate cycle has and the nature of renminbi and dollar has shifted. So it's actually quite unique, because this is a moment where trade and investment and capital of people can really use renminbi as a funding currency and a financing currency, where China and Hong Kong can be the export and creator of that renminbi currency. So I think this is also a critical time to really get to that mass. Whether it's 800 billion or a trillion outstanding deposit, they are really a fraction of a starting point. We know it's a fraction of a starting point because we know renminbi, whether it's FX turnover or trade settlement, etc., they're only 3 or 4%. 3 or 4% of a currency of the largest trading state is just a very underrepresenting volume. So I think much more work to do there.
Thank you, David. Safe trip to Beijing tonight at 7. Angel, in 2022, Citigroup recognized and named Hong Kong as one of the 4 global wealth hubs, including London, Singapore, and UAE, and recentered its focus towards wealth management, which you lead at Citi. What factors have made Hong Kong a primary global wealth hub relative to other cities, and how is Hong Kong well suited for the development of new products, particularly in wealth management? Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. And you put me in a very difficult position, because I'm the last one and I got 1 minute and 13 seconds to answer the question. And it's a very difficult act to follow after David when he used the analogy of freshwater fish catching seafood for talking about renminbi internationalization. So first and foremost, your first sentence is correct, okay? We are doubling down in investing in wealth management in this part of the world. And there are several key reasons for that, and I just want to cite several facts, to support that. First and foremost, everybody talks about the rise of the Asian middle class, and it is very true. The Asian middle class actually rise a lot, right? From 2 billion to 3.5 billion of middle class that is coming from Asia. And it constitutes about 65%, it will constitute 65% of the world middle class size. So that is where the money is. And I love money, I particularly love other people's money, managing them. So this is where, the business is. And secondly, millionaires, in the past 3 years, both China and India has doubled the size, the number of millionaires. And the third fact, very simple, billionaires. We have 950 billionaires in Asia, which is outnumbering all the rest of the region in the world, okay? So where the money is? Here, okay? So when we talk about wealth management, I don't think just about the banks. I think all of the company who wants to look for growth needs to double down in Asia for wealth management. Is Hong Kong well positioned for it? Yes. Okay, and the reason is very simple, because we are the gateway of China, period. And when we look into China, China gives us, number one, the market, okay? And when we look into the growth of wealth in China, is at a compound rate of 15% annually. And if it is not the highest, it will be one of the highest growth rate in the world. And when we look into the West, many of the mature economy is at a low single digit. So we have the market, for us to serve, and we have the tool, we have the enabler, for us to serve this wealth management market. If you dissect, a little bit the nature of the wealth in China, there is like two groups of assets. One is physical asset, the other is financial asset. 70% of the wealth in China are under physical asset, that is real estate, property, and 30% are in the financial asset. And within the financial asset, 50% are in deposit and cash. So I think the need is very prevalent for wealth management for them because, we need to help doing the diversification of allocation. And even though, when you're homing into the rest of the 50% of the financial asset, most of it is equity and it's a single stock pick, right? So when you look at risk management, when you look at wealth growth, there is tremendous opportunity for us in Hong Kong to service the need. Do we have the enabler here? Definitely. We have the talent. We have the financial infrastructure. The banking industry, the financial industry is very well positioned, to service that. We talk about a lot of the Connect system. We recently have launched the Wealth Management Connect, which also, help us to serve the China market, the wealth management growth a lot better than before. So the long answer to your questions is definitely, Hong Kong is very well positioned. To end, my very quick comment, I think very importantly is not to be complacent. I think we also need to build and continues to build the enablers and the strength, of Hong Kong to be able to continue to serve this market. And I think three areas, we need to put extra focus on. One, the government has already, started very well on the new policy on family office, and I think that will help a lot because the family office needs is rising very fast, in this part of the world. Secondly, is continue to invest in doubling down on financial technology, and thirdly is to look at how we can strengthen our ability to help mainland China on pension management, because this is one of the biggest gap and need as well in this particular market. I'll end my comment there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So this has been a fantastic discussion with excitement, humor, and a lot of new details. It's been a real privilege for me. Hong Kong's financial success and our spirit of innovation are core parts of what makes our city truly one of a kind in the world. There's only one Hong Kong. And thank you all for making Hong Kong an even greater place. Thank you all for listening. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Once again, let's put our hands together for our panel speakers and Mr. Ng for doing us the honor of moderating for us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please do be seated and have a good flight to Beijing. All right, before I invite our next panel on stage, once again, a reminder, if you have questions to pose for our panel speakers and our moderator, do utilize the QR code on the leaflet for the second panel. 如果您对于我们论坛上的主讲嘉宾有提问，希望向他们发问的话呢，可以看一下我们常看上面有2个二维码，但我们现在呢是第2个二维码，就可以把你们的提问给问到我们台上的嘉宾们。Well, just to do a short poll here, in the past month, I find that most of my friends have been in a dilemma to decide what events to go. Hands up for those who have been to Rugby 7. Not bad. Hands up for those who have been to Art Basel. The Innovation and Tech Week. That's right. In fact, Hong Kong is not only a world's leading market for investments as well as for capital raising, but also to stage international events. And our region's facilitating position has been further affirmed and expanded in China's 14th five-year plan announced in the year 2021. So up next, we will be having 7 business and cultural leaders coming forward to the stage to share with us on how Hong Kong could construct a new platform for East meets West. Please join me in welcoming on stage His Excellency once again, Ambassador Sehasak Pugagel. Welcome once again. Thank you. And Mr. Ronnie Chan, thank you for joining us as a panelist. Mr. Bernard Chan, welcome. Mr. Guy Bradley, welcome. Mr. Kiyotaka Endo, welcome. Dr. Tricia Leahy, welcome. And our moderator for the session, our very own Dr. Jane Lee. Welcome. So, Dr. Lee, over to you.
Well, we have heard a lot about China's 14th five-year plan in the past few months. And obviously, we had a very significant role as an international financial center. But among the list, Hong Kong is also categorized as a center of East meets West International Cultural Center. And of course, we're also aviation center as well as a trade center. So we have multiple roles. This session, we would like to cover how Hong Kong East meets West to become and other aspects of international positions. And we are very pleased to have a very distinguished groups of panel with us. And I also invite Ambassador Sihasag as well as Ronnie to come on the stage again if in case we would like to have other questions for them. And in view of the very limited time in our overrun of the sessions, I also plan to shorten and finish it with 30 minutes to hopefully finish on time. And thank you very much for your continued patience with us. Well, first of all, Bernard, you were one of the very, very key persons in the past many years in the building up of our huge West Kowloon complex, cultural complex. And shortly before Hong Kong was normalized, you have already invited Kusama's exhibition to Hong Kong. I heard it was not easy to arrange. You also paid a very quick one-day visit to her to try to invite her to come to Hong Kong in person. What a great effort. And would you like to share with us how you look at the importance of Hong Kong as an international cultural center and your experience in developing the West Kowloon complex?
Well, thank you, Jane. First of all, for those of you who have not followed the history of the West Kowloon Cultural District, this whole thing started 25 years ago. In fact, it was first announced in Mr. C.H. Tung's policy address in 1998. But I'm pretty sure back then, even him himself may not have expected how important this West Kowloon it is today for Hong Kong. Especially at a time for this moment, West Kowloon Cultural District is the Hong Kong comeback story. Seriously. Whether it's M+ or Palace Museum and the other facilities we have, because they are truly world-class. Jane, you asked the questions, Kusama. Yes, I mean, honestly, I'm not exactly a Kusama follower all this year until now because I'm in this position. And I was so amazed because an exhibition like Kusama is many years in making. It didn't just happen like 2 months ago when we announced this thing. Years in making, in preparing. And so when I was first being told about these Kusama exhibitions, my first question was, you know, where are these collection came from? Apparently, it's been like unknown for many different places, right? They're unknown to Hong Kong, right? We create this show, but all the paintings came from everywhere. So why would they trust us? Right? Because you can see M+ like a complete startup. We were only open in 2021 November. So why would they trust us, you know, to give us these collection, right? We have no track record before. We do now. We now have a track record. Amazing. People was like, wow, Hong Kong can do this. But before that, why would they trust us? Would they trust us because it's not just we have the hardware, but we have the software, we have the people. So the people behind M+, they are experts from everywhere, right? When we open M+, we recruit them to Hong Kong to work for us. And they have the track record. They were able to convince to some foundations and all the different counterparts to lend us these things. Similarly, at Palace Museum, why would Beijing Palace Museum entrust us and gave us 900 pieces of, you know, and of the 900 pieces, 160 are Grade 1 treasure from China, from Beijing, on loan to us. Again, because we, LCSD, the Hong Kong government, have track record in showcasing these national treasures. So I think it's a combination, even though both Palace Museum and M+ are startups with no track record, but people entrusted us that Hong Kong can deliver them, and we did. And now even better, now the story is even easier to convince because now they can see what we can deliver, and I can foresee more and more international collaboration to come, and Hong Kong will continue to able to use West Kowloon to showcase, we Hong Kong as a hub, an arts and culture hub, not just for Hong Kong, for the region, and we should be using this Hong Kong platform to work with our counterparts in the ASEAN, with Japan, and South Korea, and so on. It should not be just us. It's the entire region. I can entirely agree with Ambassador Sihasa's earlier comments. This is not just one location. It is collaboration with the region because the time is Asia now. So I think Hong Kong can be entrusted with this role to facilitate this dialogue within the entire region.
Thank you, Bernard. Mr. Bradley, the role of Hong Kong as an international aviation center is really important. And of course, in the past few years, aviation suffered the most among the difficult problems Hong Kong's economy. And now it's recovering. And would you please share with us your experience of Hong Kong rebounding as an aviation center?
Well, certainly, it's extremely nice to be flying again, I can tell you that. After 2 or 3 years of very difficult times, both for Hong Kong and for aviation. Look, the two biggest challenges I think we're facing, and these are global challenges in aviation, are one to do with manpower and one to do with just airport resources, which can mean capacity shortages or infrastructure issues. And on the manpower side, it's, much has been made of the sort of need to get top talent into Hong Kong, but I can assure you, certainly in terms of airport workers, it's also, there's also shortages in the frontline staff, and so we need to not forget that. Same in lots of other jurisdictions, but it's definitely the case here. So, I mean, luckily, we've heard that under one country, two systems, and with the 14th five-year plan, Hong Kong is set up now to act as that super connector between East and West. And as Hong Kong's home carrier, Cathay Pacific's obviously got a very important role in carrying people and goods in and out of China through Hong Kong and to the world. So we're pretty excited about that. You heard Bernie say at the start of the conference that within 5 hours flight, we get to half of the world's population. So Hong Kong has a very strong natural position vis-a-vis other parts of other competitors like Singapore as an aviation hub, and we need to continue to leverage that. We've also got this proximity now to the GBA, and instead of just being an 8 million domestic-based market, we're an 86 million domestic-based market, and that represents a real opportunity now for Hong Kong to see its passenger base in a much bigger way. So we're very excited about that. The other interesting thing on the cargo side is, as most of you will know, Hong Kong has been the #1 international cargo hub in the world for quite some time, and it was staggering, really, that we were able to still retain that position in 2022. Despite all the things that were going on in terms of supply chains and pandemics and things. So we need to stay there, and we need to build on that #1 position, so that'll be pretty exciting. I think in terms of opportunities to address those challenges, we've got a new third runway coming, which we're all getting ready for, and that will be very good for Hong Kong. And we've got great support from the central government, which is vital. And I think in terms of the labour, the exciting opportunity for me is this great frontline pool of labour just across the border. And we should look very hard and work very hard to tap into that pool of labour. And lastly, for me, the opportunity is to increase our collaboration in an aviation sense, with Shenzhen and Zhuhai. I know there are lots of conversations with Zhuhai and the Hong Kong airport, but we also need to think about Shenzhen, which is only 36 kilometers away. And I think basically my position is we need more than one bridge connecting all these places. And how about a rail link between the two airports, Shenzhen and Hong Kong? 15 minutes between the two, it would benefit both ends. It'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Ando-san, well, supply chain is obviously very important in building up Hong Kong's trading international position. And would you like to share with you your experience in Liaison's fruit development and product development and your operation? Share with us your experiences.
Okay, so I'm an instant noodle man. So I should have some simple, short speech, maybe. Just to talk. Explanation is better. Yeah? Yeah, so we Nishin has some international section here, and we try to export our products to US or Australia, not only China. We had a factory here, and also China, in mainland China too. And then, Hong Kong is a very famous show window for mainland China FMCG market, but recently changing to global market, for the global market, because under the COVID, Southeast Asian flavors become very popular in US supermarket, in Australian supermarket. So they try to expand more space for Asian food. And then Hong Kong is a very good market, test market for Southeast Asian flavor or Korean flavors, because US buyers or Australian buyer contact to Hong Kong, what is the popular flavor in Hong Kong, especially about the Southeast Asian flavors. And then this is one of our additional function in Hong Kong. And the supply side, Hong Kong is very close to Guangdong and also Fujian. So our factories, mainly GBA area, we had 9 factories, and then materials, and then logistics, everything very efficiency. And we had R&D here, so we can develop our new product here, and then PL to US, Australia, not only China. So this is a very wonderful place, efficiency place in the market for us. This is our Hong Kong Hub Center's function.
Thank you very much, Anderson. Chisha, we're very happy to see Hong Kong athletes' continued success since the Tokyo Olympics. And of course, the recent success was also really encouraging for us. And you obviously play a very important role in this. And Rugby 7 is also another encouraging event for us. We had 29,000 people enrolled, and about 20% from overseas. Of course, related to this is a series of entertainment, business, and events that happened during the week. And would you like to share with us, in view of the development of Kai Tak's, sports complex, share with us your view on Hong Kong's and its potential to become an international sports center?
Thank you very much, Jane. Well, first of all, let me begin my comments by saying that we've had some articulation earlier on in the sessions about the increasing polarization of the world and the political conflicts and the exclusionary policies stemming from that. So the first thing that I want to say is, if you want an example of best practice, of fierce competition and excellent collaboration, look no further than sport. Everything we do, we cannot have a competition without engagement with the world, without connection with the world. And the advantage of us in high-performance sport demonstrating the values of a balance between positive competition and collaboration, I feel is a very important lesson for all of us to learn, whether in our business or in our political communities. You mentioned the recent success of the athletes, and of course, the success of the athletes is not that recent. It's actually, they've been developing over the years to the point where they are now a very credible force on the world stage. And this comes back to what, Bernard, you were saying earlier. Do we have the profile to actually make a play to attract big events coming to Hong Kong? And the answer is that we do. Just to give you a little context for the performance of the athletes at the Tokyo Olympics, then I'll get to your Kai-Tak question, don't worry. In Tokyo, the athletes came back from the Olympics with 6 medals and 5 in the Paralympics. Now, over 200 regions and countries participate in the Olympics and have been doing so for the last 100 years. 75% of them have never won a gold medal. 60% of them have never won any medal whatsoever. So Hong Kong is part of a very small minority of players on the international world stage that can actually get out there and bring home medals and fiercely compete and will absolutely be determined to beat you down, but they will do so in the spirit of friendship, under the Olympic values of collaboration and friendship and mutual respect. So I think every time the athletes go out and represent Hong Kong, they are not just telling Hong Kong positive stories, they are performing Hong Kong positive stories. So I think together with sport and culture, this is the advantage that we have, is because we operate in a performative space where excellence is celebrated. And I think that once we catch on to or latch on to the momentum of what's going on right now in sport, we have a very positive direction that we can move in. Now, the Kai-Tak Sports Park is an amazing hardware infrastructure coming online in around 2024. And that's going to, I really believe, be a catalyst for changing how we can attract more and more major events like Rugby Sevens to come to Hong Kong. And in relation to Rugby Sevens, it was mentioned earlier that 16 men's teams and 12 women's teams came to Hong Kong. These were not any old 16 teams. They were the world's best 16 teams and the world's best women's 12 teams that came to Hong Kong. So this is the kind of attractiveness that we have, the ability to bring other places together and showcase and have a fantastic time while doing it. So I believe with the Kai-Tak Sports Park coming online, we're going to be even better positioned. Now, to take advantage of that momentum, we really all have to get on board, or we're going to fall off the momentum. And I think that includes the government continuing its policy priority to continue to fund sport appropriately, also at the grassroots level, community level, and school level, as well as at the high performance level. And also the business community get involved. This is a highly successful part of Hong Kong life. And you have a lot of benefits if you can get involved in sponsoring and supporting the events that are coming onto Hong Kong. And this, in turn, establishes Hong Kong as a very positive, dynamic, and unique place. It really helps our image. Now, the thing about image is that it's a two-way mirror. And I think it's equally important that we express the positive stories of Hong Kong, because these then get reflected back to us, and particularly to our young people, our future generations. They get an idea of themselves reflected back that, wow, Hong Kong is an absolutely super fantastic place. And I think that's the importance of the messaging. It's not just externally focused, but it's reflective back and internally focused. And sport has that power to move that development forward. And it's no coincidence that sport policy is a very important policy priority for many governments around the world, because everybody sees the dynamic and positive nature of sport to bring benefits. So this is not a soft power. This is a very, very visible hard power. And I think the image of Hong Kong athletes performing successfully, or even when they perform unsuccessfully and they get defeated, but they get back up again with that determination, undiminished determination to fight again. This, I think, has a real impact on social mindsets. Again, whether it's externally with people admiring the competitive, fierce spirit of Hong Kong, and internally, our can-do spirit, our athlete spirit that I hope every young person in Hong Kong and every old person like us sitting here can also learn and demonstrate in our lives, in our business, and in our communities. This is, for me, what's the best part of Hong Kong.
I think you also have a lot of collaboration with China mainland in terms of training and other things.
This is unquestionably, we cannot operate without collaboration. So we collaborate with our counterparts in mainland China. We have a number of institutional relationships in mainland China and have done for many years, and we have benefited significantly from that. Also with our ASEAN partners, and also with our wider Asian partners, as well as with our international partners. So we also, similar to what has been mentioned before, see ourselves as part of that dual circulation pathway. We're circulating within the Greater Bay Area, within China, and out into the Asian region, including our ASEAN friends, as well as internationally. So I think sport has a very finessed way of moving through these political barriers and finding ways of moving forward and showing positive collaboration. And don't forget, 2025, the Greater Bay Area, Hong Kong hosted, co-hosted, National Games will be held here in Hong Kong. It's co-hosted by Macau, Guangdong, and also Hong Kong. So this is going to be a spectacular event. Get behind it, make sure you come out to support the athletes, and make sure that you support the events. This will showcase Kai Tak Sports Park in a fantastic way, because with that beautiful 50,000 seat stadium, we're all looking forward to this, and I think the only way is up.
Thank you very much, Trisha. Ambassador Sihasak, you just mentioned it is important to have quality and sustainable growth. And obviously, one of the most valuable parts of our Eastern culture is harmony, is collaboration. We talk about dialogue and sharing. Would you like to share with us your ASEAN perspective in this and the role of Hong Kong in contributing to this kind of development of collaboration with Eastern values?
Well, of course, we have so-called Eastern value. There's so-called Western value. But the tendency is to create a divide between these Eastern value and Western value. I think what is important is to share these values. And I think what Kun Bernard is doing is very important, because these days, more and more, my concern is that, you try to divide the world between, as I mentioned, friends and foes, democracies and authoritarian regime. I don't think we can divide the world that way, because in the end, everything is indivisible. Indivisible in terms of peace, security, prosperity. And culturally, we should see as a means of bringing countries together. I serve my country on UNESCO, on the World Cultural Heritage. And I think this is what we have to do. See culture as the bridge that brings us together, because we all appreciate culture, And so that for me, East and West, yes, but at the same time, it doesn't mean East is the East, West is the West. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ronnie, thank you so much for your address to us. Would you like to further elaborate on this topic of this panel, East Meets West International Cultural Center? You also give a lot of support to cultural developments, both in China mainland and Hong Kong. What do you think would be the role of Hong Kong in cultural exchanges, and what is the potential of this?
First of all, Jane, my name is Ronnie Chan. Ronnie is a Western name, and Chan is a Chinese name.
杨明教长.
And according to Zheng Yanxiong earlier, the director, let it be. And a lot of people have thought of changing the names, but my father named me after an Australian Jew by the name of Ronnie. So I'm very happy to live with that name for the last 70-some years, and why not for the next 30? So I think that tells you a lot already in itself, that the Hong Kong people is perhaps, for historic reasons, very much of a cultural blending place. We move easily between the East and the West. And when I say East, I don't just mean Chinese. I mean a little bit of Japan, a little bit of Korea, a little bit of Southeast Asia, because Hong Kong people travel so much, and we love all those countries. But of course, China being a big cultural factor in this part of the world, that to be able to move freely between the Chinese culture and the Western culture is really an advantage. And by the way, I go to India about 6-7 times a year too. And Hong Kong people will do well to get to know Indian culture as well. So I think that Hong Kong is privileged in a sense. We don't start at ground zero. We start at ground whatever, that we are really a step ahead of most people in terms of being culturally savvy and culturally adapt. I mean, then consider another thing. Bernard mentioned about the art institute and the museum that he and the Hong Kong government have built. I think that's fantastic. But also consider what I'm going to say next. Hong Kong has more private gallery probably than any other country, any other city in the rest of Asia. The only exception perhaps is Japan, but Japan is very big and very Japan-centric, whereas Hong Kong is really all over the place. You have the best of the Chinese, you have the best of the West. And I was hosting an event where a top executive of an auction house in Hong Kong spoke. And he said to me, he said, in answer to my question, he said, there's only 3 auction centers in the world, and that is London, New York, and Hong Kong. And the reason is because historically, we have all the expertise right here. Talk about Chinese bronze, Chinese painting, Chinese calligraphy, Western modernist, postmodernist, classical, you name it. We have the expert here from judging the authenticity of it all the way to the technical restoration of it. Hong Kong has probably more of all that that chain than anywhere else in the world. And of course, finally, the very important thing is money. Hong Kong is the money. And the Hong Kong money is very much into the art. So the gentleman told me, the auction house gentleman, he said something like 70-80%, about 80% of the artwork sold in this part of the world are from the Chinese, from mainland, from Taiwan, and from Hong Kong. The next one is perhaps Vietnam, he told me, which was a little bit to my surprise, but whatever it is. So 70-80% of all the money that buys art is in Hong Kong or through Hong Kong. And so, all these things together with the sports, the air hub, the art, and so forth, and the business leaders who are making Hong Kong a hub, I just think that Hong Kong, not just on the business side, but in the art side, is unique. Finally, allow me to say one last thing to a little marketing. Right across the street here is a thing called the Asia Society. If you have not been to Asia Society, sorry, you're culturally unadept.
Thank you.
So walk over there. There is an art exhibition right now. Listen, that is 5 Italian artists, sculptors and sculptresses working on stone, and 5 Hong Kong artists working on wood. And each piece is co-invented, co-created by an Italian and a Hong Kong. So, where do you see such thing, right? So I'm not just marketing Asia Society, of course I am, but just to show you what Hong Kong is like. And these are the institutions that almost don't exist anywhere else in the world, in this part of the world. And so I'm very comfortable that Hong Kong, in the artistic and cultural side of things, will also blossom in the coming years and decades to come.
Thank you, Ronnie. I think Bernard would like to have the last word.
Because after Ronnie spoke, then the rest of us can also now chip in, because Ronnie can always dare to say something that no one else dare to, to comment. Even though we all share the same thing, but Ronnie will be the first. I just want to say one thing, that something he just spoke, and it struck me that I have to respond when you mention your name, Ronnie Chan, right? Because
Bernard Chan.
Yes, not only that, Ronnie, this is exactly my point. And it's not actually a secret, it's an open secret. When I was asked to join the Executive Council, I have to give up my Thai passport, right? I gave up my Thai passport in 2004 in order to join the Executive Council. But that is also the same time, I actually changed my name. My English, well, the English name I use in Hong Kong, I add a Thai name to my name, right? Because I want to preserve that heritage. I'm not shy about that heritage. But of course, I'm born and raised in Hong Kong, but it's nothing wrong for me to add that name. They don't use it for today because it's just too long, but anyway, it's my name. So I think that's what Hong Kong is about, right? It's about inclusiveness, right? We are an international city. We should be inclusive. And I'm so glad today the message was for Director Zhang telling that we should continue Hong Kong the way we have always been. So I think, but of course, only after Ronnie spoke, then I dared to comment my name.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure that members sharing on the message we just listened tell us that Hong Kong is also a very livable city. We have very good opportunities for sports, arts and culture, music, and of course, a good business trading opportunities. And with this point, I should stop here because I want to let Bernard to give the final remarks. Could I have the MC, please?
Thank you very much. Let's put our hands together for the panel, shall we? While we still have everyone on stage, could we invite Mr. Bernard Chan to deliver the closing remarks for today, please?
Do I do it from here, or we let? Okay, or my source. Well, first of all, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's been more than 3 hours. When I saw Sir Michael still here with us, and Aaron is here, I feel like, okay, at least you must be creating some value, right? That the rest of you are still here with us after 3 hours long. I hope that you benefit from today's event, especially from all the remarks given by our esteemed speakers, panelists, and so on. And I think especially, I'm not joking, the comment made by Director Zhang early on, I hope you all get the proper translation because his remark is very important, right? In fact, I think that's probably the single most important takeaway this afternoon is it's not just us, it's central government wants Hong Kong to continue the role of Hong Kong being an international city. Not just for China, but for the world. Hong Kong is an international city. But of course, given the 3 years of COVID and so on, and all the negative press, people start to doubt about are we remain as international as we should be. And it's not just the international world doubt us. Even among us, some of us start to worry about that future of Hong Kong. But I think hopefully through today's event and the endorsement given by our speakers and panelists, it gives us the assurance that Hong Kong should continue this path. And our Hong Kong foundations are very glad that we have this opportunity to host this event. And this will definitely not be the last. We will continue to help to foster that dialogue. I think dialogue is important. Again, it is not just about Hong Kong. I think Ambassador Sihasa's comment early on about leave no one behind. I think that's an important message. It can mean many things, right? It's between the own city. We must be inclusive. We make sure that we include everyone while we progress. But it can also say about the whole region as a whole too. It's not a zero-sum game. We should not be just Hong Kong winning everything. We should work together with all our partners in the region, business and so on, to win together. But first thing first is we got to have a proper dialogue and a collaboration that everyone can win. So I just want to, again, thanks everyone. We'll make sure that right before 6 o'clock, we end this symposium forum. Thank you, everyone, again. And thanks again to all our speakers and panelists who's sticking with us all this time. Hope to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chan. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, we would now like to announce the closing of the official proceedings for today's International Forum. Once again, I would like to invite everyone to put our hands together for our speakers, our guests, our media friends, those of you joining us physically, and our online audience joining us this afternoon. We would also like to appreciate our supporting partners, and they include the Hong Kong ASEAN Foundation, our forum patron, Sino Group, and our venue partner, the Conrad Hong Kong, for your support to make this forum a great success. Last but not the least, I would like to also commend the Foundation's team in putting together this spectacular event in slightly less than a month's time. So great work, everyone. Once again, if you're interested to revisit the forum, please don't hesitate to go online onto our Hong Kong Foundation's Facebook page or our YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to be your MC today. I wish everyone had some takeaways today, and have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you next time. Thank you.